Hello, and welcome back to Pia Pops Off, a podcast where I talk about everything and anything, usually pop culture. And today, we are on episode 6. Oh my God, it feels good to say that. 666. Okay, sorry, no. We ain't got no devilish talking here. We're going to be popping off about a literal devil, recapping the Diddy documentary on Peacock. It is Diddy Making of a Bad Boy. And we're popping off with one of my dear friends, Curtis Reed. I picked Curtis to pop off about this documentary, help me really go through things that I think that we were missing from this Peacock documentary. I call this Peacock documentary a soft launch into what I feel like will be an inevitable documentary. It's really getting into the gritty, dirty Diddy details. That was a mouthful. But Curtis, he is a person that has a vast knowledge of the case, of cases that have been, there's been like 30 plus cases, guys. And I'm telling you, Curtis literally has read through all of the documentation. So I said, let's bring him on. He's going to help guide us through the documentary on what they got right and what they absolutely missed. But before we get into the documentary, we have a little Pia Pop business to attend to. So, like I always say, if you're listening to the audio version, if you could please rate me 5 stars and leave a positive review, that goes a long way. And if you are watching me on YouTube, hey, I highly recommend, one, listening to the audio, but also hopping over to YouTube and watching it because I do put it in fun graphics and what I call Pia Pop facts. So you get like kind of little bonus content if you're watching the visual. And if you're watching the visual, don't forget to subscribe. Hit that like button and notification bell so that you always stay informed when I drop these videos. Our poll question last week was a lie by me because I haven't released the clip from last week's episode that would have corresponded to the poll question because Val and I, who was my guest last week, we had an impromptu summer house recap. So I actually ended up putting that clip up first and giving you a second or a bonus poll question. And that poll question was, what team are you on? Team Kyle or Team Hannah? And 47% of you said team neither, which is so accurate. I feel like it's really hard to be on either of their sides because Hannah was absolutely acting like a monster her last season. But Kyle Cook is a monster in real life. Fight me on that one. So it just seems like we just couldn't be on anybody's team because they both acted poorly. So that's what it is. The people have spoken. And then I think that's all we really have to cover. So let's just get right into the dirty details of Diddy Making of a Bad Boy. Hi, Curtis.
Hey, PJ.
I'm so happy to have you on. Curtis is my friend for 10 years now?
We're going on 10. 10, which is wild to even think about. Time flies, honestly.
I know. So Curtis and I met at work. We worked at this members only club called Soho House in West. What happened, Pen? What'd you do? You okay?
Mom's been working a little bit too hard. It's like we're doing the
No,
intro.
he just screamed. What happened? You okay?
Penny.
Come back up here.
His little scarf.
All right. Oh my gosh. Okay. Sorry. Yes. Curtis and I met at
Don't apologize because we gonna see cats running in the background probably.
I know.
At some
There was
point.
a little scream. So Curtis and I worked at a members only club called Soho House in West Hollywood. We were both servers. I'm still working there. He does not work there anymore.
Just moved down the street to another place.
Just down the road though. So sometimes we carpool because we both live in North Hollywood, 5 minutes away from each other.
No, literally,
so
we're in the same neighborhood. We work and play together, essentially.
Exactly. I've had a lot of people on. This was episode number 6 for me for Pia Pops Off. And
congrats,
I've had
by the way.
Thank you. So I've had a lot of my friends on because every time I pick a topic, I try to think of a friend that would just know the ins and outs of that topic, without any effort. You know what I mean? Putting effort in. But this week we're doing the Diddy documentary, Diddy Making of a Bad Boy. Bad boy for sure. And Curtis. Understatement. See, I already know he's already starting.
I'm already foaming at the mouth, y'all.
So first of all, Curtis has a vast knowledge of music in general. Like, he makes fun of me because my music knowledge stops at 2011. Okay. Like, it's the cutoff. I don't know shit after 2011. It's sad. If they're not playing on the radio, I don't know who the fuck it is. That's my problem.
To your credit, though, early 2000 music was pretty. It was a key. It was a key. We had Ludacris. We had T-Pain. We had Aaliyah. We had the things. So
we had the things, and I said we had all the things, and I don't need any more things. So I stopped. I just dead fucking stopped. But that's why I was funny. Like, I know, yeah. And I've been keeping up with the whole Diddy stuff. Like, I know a lot of what's going on with Diddy, and also his music in general is like the era of music where I was consuming it. But Curtis is going to help me fill in the blanks of all these like other nuanced artists and stuff like that came up even in this documentary that I don't remember. Like the one girl that you sent me the TikToks of, I don't remember her name right now.
Nikki Heaton. We're going to get into Nikki Heaton for sure.
Yes. Nikki Heaton. So she was briefly mentioned in the documentary at the very end. So we'll put a pin in that and get back to it. But again, Curtis is gonna be able to. Oh yeah. It's at the very end. That.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Curtis is gonna be so helpful to be able to give us like really good details on things that maybe I can't give you. So let's get into it. Before we even get into it, Curtis also, I started this off by saying I invite a lot of, friends on. A lot of my friends are also either podcasters or content creators. Not all of them that will come on the show are like maybe in the creative field, but Curtis is in the creative field. He actually has a TikTok account. It is called Reality Curdy. Unfortunately, we are recording this on the eve of what is said to be the great blackout of TikTok. But Curtis has amassed a really nice following where he pops off mostly about Bravo content, but he has other reality shows mixed in there, like Baddies. Sometimes he'll do
the ratchetness,
the Love and Hip Hops,
Love it, yeah. We sprinkle in a little bit of everything over there, but also with TikTok is going to be shut down by the time this airs. I don't know if Lemonade will be too. I might be doing like 1 minute recaps over there for the time being.
On Lemonade? Okay.
Yeah, on Lemonade until I figure out what I want to do.
I can't wait to figure out where you're gonna be. I'm malfunctioning like TikTok's about to malfunction.
Girl, I can't wait till I figure it out either. So
right, but I'll have all his socials listed in the description box below, so you will be able to track his ass. So don't worry, you'll find him. Let's get into Diddy. Speaking of a bad boy. Like that's an underfucking statement.
A bad boy, which I was like, that was a very soft title for me because, like, I get it was cheeky going off of the making of the band thing. Like, it was cheeky.
Yes, it is cheeky, and to your point, it was a very soft title. And what my overall impression of the documentary and in general was, it was very soft, in my opinion. Like, I thought the documentary was very soft. I enjoyed it. Don't get me wrong. So let's continue to tune into the podcast. But I do feel like we missed some chunks of things that I was confused of why.
I do too. I have theories about that.
Yeah, because I made in my notes section, I have a whole thing of like people that were not included in the documentary. The funny thing is they snuck it in visually, but they didn't actually say anything about the persons or even name some of the people weren't named, but they definitely showed their picture. But I have like a laundry list of people. I'm like, why didn't we talk about this? Why didn't we talk about that? Why didn't we talk about this? But before we get into what we did not talk about, let's talk about what we did talk about.
Give it credit though. There was a couple things that I did learn, even for myself. I learned. So
the documentary wasn't. Yeah, no, the documentary was not like a waste of time by any means. I just feel like it was a soft launch where I know that there are going to be other documentaries that come out in the future on this case because it is still, we're in the middle of it. So I feel like the ones that we're going to get like the real hard hitting stuff has yet to be made or is in the process of being made, because I feel like those won't get released until the trial either begins or ends. I don't know how long this is going to take for the trial. So maybe I feel like probably ends. So I feel like we won't get a real documentary until like next year or two, like 2 years
honestly,
from now.
I don't think we'll get a solid, already happening. sorry, the cats. I don't think we're going to get a solid good one, like you said, till like another 2 years, because think about it in the time frame of how other documentaries have been made, like some really good ones. Like even like the most recent music documentary, the Megan Thee Stallion one on Amazon, which if you guys have not watched that, I highly encourage you guys to watch it.
I haven't seen it yet.
That documentary was made over its course of like, I think 5, 6, 7 years. So I think, like you said, we're going to start getting more and more information. The court cases are going to start to come out, and checks are going to be getting bigger, which is going to entice people to say more things. Like some of those things, like some of those people are going to be on other documentaries, I believe. And I think some of those people might have withheld some information because we still have HBO Max, we still have Hulu, we still have Netflix, we still have people who are cutting checks.
Yeah, because I think that the 50 Cent documentary that he sold, I believe he sold it to Netflix. So I think that, and he's been making that one for like several years. But again, I don't even know if they're ready to release that until they get maybe more of the court stuff. I feel like a lot of people are waiting for the court case. And I mean,
that's what makes a good documentary.
Right. So, I mean, I'm going to be patient. I want a really well put together documentary. But this was giving us like, I think this was satiating our appetite for what the spectacle, and I hate to just say it in those loose terms because what is going on in this, the allegations against Diddy is, oh, by the way, I should have started with this. Please, big trigger warning. This whole episode, usually if I talk about sensitive topics, I say trigger warning before because I don't want anybody to just go into this and not knowing what they're getting into. But this whole episode is a trigger warning. So please be advised, we're going to be talking about allegations of sexual assault, abuse on every level, child abuse. So please, if this is an episode that this might be triggering for you, please protect your mental health and just skip this one, okay? Because this is not for you. This is very serious.
It's going to get gritty for sure, especially with a lot of the details in the case, because these cases and these allegations aren't just your typical normal.
Yeah, this is.
I'm not saying the assault is normal at all, but this is very extreme. Like, this is what he was doing.
Yeah, the allegations against Diddy, which is like just, it blows my mind the amount of allegations. Because again, yes, sexual assault on any level is a heinous crime. Like Law and Order SVU always opens up and says it's a heinous crime. But the things listed against him, I don't even know how a person is capable of doing any of those things.
Girl, but when I read the lawsuit, we are jumping the gun.
Yes, let's start off with what the documentary covers. So the documentary opens with kind of giving us an overview of what it's going to be covering. So like it opens with a montage of 2016 the Cassie assault, 2024, the house raid. And then we go boom. We go into like this really mysterious like tracking. It's like bumpy. The camera's bumping along and we're going into some like looks like desolate wooded area cabin, literally a cabin in the woods. And I'm like, what the fuck is about to happen? Like, why are we going to a cabin in the woods? Like, who is here? And it starts out with his childhood friend, he being Diddy's childhood friend, Tim. And Tim is honestly, I think, one of the most authentic voices in the documentary and the one that I trusted the most in the documentary. And I say that because we have a cast of characters in this documentary that I do believe in some part, but I don't believe in some parts too, because I think everybody in this documentary has agenda. Yeah, right? They have an agenda.
Yes, especially with Tim, though. It's interesting that you said you trusted his voice the most, because I would agree with that in the sense where he seemed to try to be the most objective, even though this was his childhood friend. Because you have a lot of his childhood friends in there, and I'm like, girl, what check is he doing, y'all?
Oh my gosh, in my notes, there's been so many times where, and I usually don't take notes like this. Like I try not to put my opinion in the notes. I'm just trying to like put pretty much bullet points so I know like how to narrate the story. And then I put my opinions on the fly, but I could not help myself when I was writing notes. And I was like, I don't believe you. I was like, I was literally making notes like, okay.
I've never seen Diddy be violent before.
Okay, Tony. Like, Albie.
Like, please. there is like a moment when they were talking about the lawsuit and what was happening in that gymnasium. And one of his childhood friends.
So Curtis is talking about, he's jumping the gun a little bit, but sometimes we need to jump the gun to like go backwards.
Bring it back.
Just so you know what we're talking about in the documentary, probably like a quarter of the way in, Curtis is referring to I think it was called, hold on, let me see, City College. You're talking about the City College incident.
Yes, the City College event.
That's where Diddy's like kind of bout with the law really kicks off the first time in a big way.
That incident where it was an oversold event, essentially, allegedly oversold event. And his friends were defending him in this because they were trying to blame Diddy essentially for this oversold event where people lost their lives. People were being trampled, couldn't breathe, like a whole bunch of things. And so one of the friends was saying, they were like, no, Diddy's such a good guy. Like I saw him giving CPR mouth to mouth to some. Girl, if you don't shut the, because his own security guard from Gene Deals from 1991 to 2005 was like, I've never seen Diddy give CPR. And then the thing is,
because Gene was there.
Gene was there. That childhood friend to say like, I saw him give CPR. It's like, okay, great, sure. That would be believable if since 1991, out of all the tragic accidents that Diddy has been in since, we have not seen not one moment of a hero play out in that, like not in the NYC club shooting, not in the Biggie situation. Like there's never been a situation where something of act of violence happened around him or someone needed saving. He was not the person putting on the cape. Ever.
Yeah, what was really ironic about that part when the friend is saying, oh, no, I saw him giving CPR, mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, all that stuff. And then Gene, the bodyguard, saying, no, if anybody is saying that, they're fucking lying. That was one time where I was like, okay, Gene's like, I could tell when Gene was lying.
Gene is also a solid voice, too, in my opinion.
Gene is a solid-ish voice. I would say solid-ish.
But biased because he don't like that man.
Right. That's why I said I think everybody has an agenda. But what made me know that Gene was telling the truth in this part was because then you have the footage of people saying no one was giving CPR, literally, like and this is like from the news.
The scene.
Yeah. This is like news coverage from the time. News coverage of the time of actual people that were there saying no one was helping anybody, no one was giving CPR. People were just too busy like looking and not doing anything, like the bystander effect, where a bunch of people are staring at these people dying right before their eyes and no one is stepping in because everybody else thinks somebody else is going to step in and do something. And that is literally the bystander effect. And then we get 9 people that die during that. But again, we're going to put a pin in that. We're going to go to the beginning.
Tim was one of those friends. I bring that up is because Tim was one of those friends that I don't think he was trying to put on a cape for his friend Diddy. I think he was just honestly recounting his story. And then his story that he recounted as it goes through the documentary, it doesn't always paint Diddy in the best light either, you know?
And that's why I feel like he was the most honest voice that we had in the documentary. And it was heartbreaking in a way because of the way, one, of how Tim is living. So when I say that the documentary starts with this bumpy footage of going into a cabin in the woods, we're going to Tim, Diddy's childhood friend's house. And he's living there because he's literally fled because of the damage in which having a relationship with Diddy has caused him. To fear enough to want to live in isolation.
Of his safety, essentially. Saying a fear of Diddy, but like of the hurricane that surrounds Diddy all the time.
Absolutely. And so Tim is really pivotal in this documentary and the crux of it because he can give us such a clear insight into Sean Combs, which is Diddy's government name, and the person that he was before he became all of his aliases, Puff Daddy, P. Diddy, Diddy, Brother Love, or whatever the hell else he calls himself. He knew Sean Combs. And this is so important because it got me to a revelation about how we got to the big court case, the big accusations and allegations against him. So, and I don't even know if Tim himself realizes that he has dropped. Well, maybe he kind of does, but I don't think he realizes to the level that he has kind of exposed the origin story of his childhood friend Sean.
I think he really, like, it's always been talked about, at least online, the history. Like, people who knew Diddy's history knew that he claimed Harlem when really he wasn't really from Harlem.
So he claims Harlem, kind of like J-Lo, which he actually famously dated in the late 90s. J-Lo claims
the Bronx.
The Bronx. I'm like,
The Bronx.
Like, what the fuck borough is she from? She did grow up in the Bronx, but the way in which J-Lo acts like she's just from the streets, it's the same way that Diddy acts like he's from the streets.
Mm-hmm.
And really, J-Lo, they didn't have that street-ass life. They had a much more privileged life.
Diddy was a mark. Diddy was a mark, which is it's so funny that, and it felt, for those who don't know, the vernacular of that, a mark is someone who is essentially like could be a victim. Like, you're a mark at the park. Like, that's what they would call those people who could get robbed easily, who can be bullied easily. Like, X marks the spot. And can I get some change off of you? You're a mark. Essentially, what Tim was saying in the beginning of that, exposing, not even exposing, but sharing his story and experiences with Diddy, that Diddy was not the most liked classmate growing up. He was actually bullied a lot growing up. And it just goes to show how you can see how Diddy got to where he is now, like how he has craved so much power because being from that little boy who was getting marked out at the park.
The documentary, Tim really exposes the fact that Diddy was actually a very well-off kid. So Diddy actually comes from a very interesting background. So his dad, his name is Melvin. Melvin was actually working for one of the biggest kingpins in Harlem at the time, which was Nicky Barnes. And it's kind of like, it's so funny because I feel like, I don't know if this is where 50 Cent comes into play. 50 Cent also had a very similar upbringing as well, where he worked for a big kingpin where he was from. But for Melvin, he ends up selling drugs to an undercover cop. And in order to get out of trouble, he starts fucking snitching. He's a rat. And anybody who's watched any type of mafia gang movie show knows that if you rat, like, snitches get stitches.
They really don't play that in New York City.
No, then you're going to get got.
Anywhere in the country, mafia land, no.
So Melvin snitched and Melvin got. So he never actually, So he never actually ends up having any type of real relationship with his father, because by the time he was like an age where he could remember things, his dad had already been passed and had been allegedly, we don't know for sure, but allegedly murdered by Melvin for snitching, or he had a hit out on him because he snitched. So, but the thing is, even with that, and you would think, oh, well, then how did he live in a privileged life? Melvin got money from his life, gang banging, selling drugs, pushing drugs. And so when he died, he left Janice, which is P. Diddy's mom, a brand new house, big ass house, and then also a lot of money. And that's
on the right side of town, because that's something that Tim also described too, is that Tim was on, like how most towns, I feel like in America, there's, your polished side and then your impoverished side.
Yeah, so Tim grew up in the south of Harlem, which is the ghetto, and the north is like the rich area, the affluent area. So Janice, Diddy's mom, she wanted Diddy, since there was no male figure in the picture anymore, she wanted Diddy to have some type of like male companion friend. And so she was friends with Tim's mom and offered them kind of like the George Jefferson, the come up, to come move on up to the north side and live in the bottom part of their new big house that Melvin had left them. And
which I thought was so cute, though. I'm like, okay, it's like that's literally how Black people form cousins.
No, absolutely, and it could have been cute, and it was cute, I guess, for a while. And then Melvin's a little older. Not Melvin. Tim's a little older than Diddy, so he left the house before, while Diddy was in high school. So the years that Tim and Diddy were growing up, things were great, but Tim does describe Diddy when he first met him. Like, he's 4 years old or something like that, and he
wearing
is dressed
rings, wristbands, top hats.
Yes, he does look like a little pimp. I'm not gonna lie.
No,
like in the pictures that
his mom was a madam.
Okay, because she was, and that's what the point I was gonna get to later. But We'll put a pin in that one as well.
There's so many pins.
There's so many pins. So pretty much during this part of the documentary, we start getting introduced to a lot of Diddy's childhood friends. And these are the more unreliable characters that Curtis and I were talking about, where like, I'm like, okay.
These are the folks that he started to meet in high school.
Yeah.
Where Diddy is now in his I'm impressing stage.
When Tim leaves the house and it's just Diddy on his own. Yeah, Diddy, I feel like that's when he's trying to...
Tim was his protector. Sean's protector during those times too. As they were growing up together.
Tim, literally, he moves into this house. We see this like little boy that looks like an adult, kinda, which he does. It's like really weird. Yeah. His face looks like Diddy, but on like a little body.
A little boy. It's
you know
so
what he reminds
weird.
me of? He reminds me of what the heck is his name? Oh my gosh, he's like the one that had that like disease.
Afro?
Gary Coleman. Coleman.
Yeah.
That's what he looks like, but Diddy.
Reverse. Yeah.
And he's like you were saying, he has the rings, like he has this man
the
has
wristlet,
money.
the top hat, the jacket.
Yes, this man has money, and this is really important because I think that this is why Diddy. I almost feel like, you know, like when people try to overcompensate because they like he this is going back to like him being like, I'm from Harlem. Like you would think that this man, like he does become a gangbanger, but like it's so weird because he literally has all this money and he is like he's a mark, and people don't really respect him in the neighborhood because they don't have any money. Like they don't like fucking have anything.
They're not even. He's not even from his neighborhood. He's like going to their part of town and like showing up like,
he's
hey girls.
Exactly, he's a poser, and he wants to be so big and bad, all like so bad.
And the real boys on the block do not want him around, which is like the funny part of it all.
And the thing is, he's kind of like getting away with this behavior because Tim, who now is like his BFF at this point, they live together. They're like cousins, like play cousins at this point. Like, he is his protector. So if anybody was trying to pick on Diddy, he would step the fuck in and be like, you're not picking on him. But unfortunately, because Tim is a little older than Diddy.
There's that side note of it too, because he had Tim, and then also we can't forget Gene, because Gene knew his dad. Gene, his bodyguard.
Well, yeah,
bodyguard in 1991.
No, I know, but we haven't gotten there yet because Gene comes in later when after Tim. No.
Okay.
No.
Okay.
No. Gene comes in after because then Tim leaves to go to the military, which also makes sense of why he lives why Tim is living the way he does. Because this whole documentary, guys. Yeah, in solitude, but this whole goddamn documentary, this man is chopping wood. This man is okay, if the world is ending, find you a fucking Tim. Because that man will get you surviving.
Period.
That man, like,
he knows how to make water out of air.
The fuck yes. No, like honestly, I know we were watching a Diddy documentary, but I kind of wanted to know a little bit more about Tim. I wanted to learn a little bit more about his background.
Actually, a very good point.
Because I was like, because I know if you haven't seen the documentary, it sounds like, oh, he's living in the cabin in the woods, but like, this is a nice cabin, guys.
This is supposed to be a cabin.
This cabin could have been.
It looked like it was on a lake. Was it on a lake?
This shit looked like it could be
on a lake.
It could be on a lake. It looks like it could be in Better Homes and Garden. This shit was nice. So it almost made me be like, should I live in the middle of a fucking woods? Like, I think this is nice. I don't really want to be around people
not
anyway.
Any woods. I want to live in Tim's woods. Like those are.
I'm gonna live in my own neck of the woods, and I'm gonna have Tim. I'm gonna outsource Tim to make my shit because
literally.
All right, but anywho, Tim leaves to go to the military, and so that he's leaving a like pretty much like what I don't want to call him sissy, but is that rude?
It could be called a little. It could be a little. Like, but
I mean. I'm saying like
he's a
timid boy. He's a timid boy who needs protecting.
He needed to. Yeah.
I don't know how else to say it. He is somebody who's gonna get to beat the fuck up.
He's a victim.
You know what I'm saying?
He wasn't the perpetrator then. He
don't know. He's not street smart. That's what I'm getting at. He ain't street smart because he ain't from the streets. Even though he tried to act like he's from the streets, he ain't from the streets. Yeah. Okay? Tim
But
from the
he
street.
found his street smarts. He did find him. He found him.
Eventually.
He learned.
He did.
He learned.
He learned.
God damn, he learned.
God damn it. Everybody learned.
Everybody. We're still learning.
We're still learning. And I'm
Allegedly.
petrified. Allegedly. So, and also, he went to, like, also another reason why people are, like, didn't take him seriously, which I take offense to, actually. One and only time I'm going to defend Diddy in this entire documentary is the fact that the one and only time, because I take offense to this, is the fact that, like, they're also basing the fact that he's, like, this rich kid because he went to Catholic school and it was a private school. And I'm like, I went to Catholic school. I went to a private school. We were not rich. And it's like, it's just because, like, my mom, I was the Tim of the Catholic school, okay? My mom figured it out. Like, she was, like, cleaning the school for tuition money. Like, she was like, she's gonna live like this. But Diddy's mom was just outright paying it. So, you know,
all communities have their ecosystems.
Yeah, so I was like, it's not that they were wrong that he was privileged, because he absolutely was, but they're basing it solely because he went to private school. And I was like, that's the
You're like, don't trigger me now in this motherfucking
Don't trigger me, because I definitely we had food stamps in our house. So
okay, my school had a gate, but baby, like, I wasn't living behind them.
Like, my mom literally cleaned the school for tuition money. Like, we were bartering. We were bartering over there. So
as a good mom would do anything for their baby.
Shout out to Leslie. To Leslie. The real one, holding me down constantly since 1989. Actually, that's so funny, because 1989 is the same time that he joined a gang.
The same gang. Which kept throwing me off because he was like, when Gene was like, the same gang, I was like, what? And it was like, oh, like, the gang is called Same Gang.
I rewind that part like 5 times because I was like, what is the name of the gang?
Because you keep saying the same gang, and I'm like, but what is the gang?
What is the gang? What's the gang?
I haven't heard the name yet.
Yeah, it's like, oh, and then I thank God there was a visual because he was wearing the jersey that said Same Gang. I was like, oh.
I eventually caught on. I was like, it's the name of the game. The name of the game is Same Gang.
Noted.
Got it.
Gang. Got it. Gang banging.
I wasn't the only one. I'm like, now wait a minute. What is the name of this damn gang?
Peacock, we have some notes.
I have my captions on. I'm like, but the name. Name them.
So it's and so that's where
Off
Gene
track.
actually, but that's where Gene comes in, because so Gene, and you know what? I watched the documentary twice because I wanted to watch for pleasure. And then the second time I watched, taking notes so I could actually be able to give you guys something.
And let me tell you, just want to sip the tea at first. You just want to sip.
I didn't. But the second, because I want to enjoy it too, guys. Like,
right. I get it.
But that was when I realized, because I already told Curtis, I was like, oh, you jumping ahead a lot. I want to do the same thing. I have to do the same thing to myself, but inside, it's like, don't fucking jump, because I want to jump right now, and I'm gonna do it anyway.
Jump.
I'm jumping. I'm jumping for a second though, so don't latch on, because I know you're gonna latch on as soon as I jump.
I'm gonna try not to, because you know how my mind works. I know how my mind works.
My mind works the same way, so I do understand, and I am constantly checking myself in here. But
the past 5 minutes, all I've been doing was like, Kurt, like, we're not there. We're not there.
I know, but it's so exciting because it's just so much. It's honestly, there's so much.
So much information that I want to get to y'all. Like, it's just
I know
so
you're
much
just like
information.
I mean, that's like for a while there. That's all I was consuming when the case like really first breaking. Like, I had to like stop looking at Diddy stuff because I was going down a very dark path. Anyway, so after, my whole point is like, so I watched it twice, right? And you know how I was saying earlier, I was like, oh, some of these people, they lying, or like, that didn't really happen. And one of the times when I was like, Gene, shut the fuck up. The first time I watched it, I'm like, what? Gene Gene is, by the way, like Curtis mentioned earlier, he was Diddy's bodyguard from 91 to 2005. And what I've seen of people who are bodyguards or drivers or celebrities, like you're seen, not heard, or if that's the phrasing, you know what I mean? Like the way in which Gene retells these stories of all the years of working for Diddy or being in his life, you would like, he's talking back to Diddy constantly. I'm like, and we know the allegations. That's my point. Wait, but hold on. The reason I didn't, my first viewing, I was like, Gina is full of shit. He's like coloring this up now because he has a camera in front of him.
Because he's like the driver, the bodyguard. Like, you're like,
yeah, like he ain't really say all this shit to Diddy. Like, no, he fucking didn't. And then when I watched it the second time, I think I missed the fact that Gene was a part of the same gang. I missed that. Because some of it, the first time I was watching, I was like moving around my apartment.
Was Diddy's OG, essentially.
That's what
like that was his big dog. And if you don't know that street term, big dog, and this is for the viewers, like I know you know this. Big dog is essentially, or your OG is essentially your person. If you're a new street person or you're coming into a gang, you typically have, it's what a mentor is, essentially. It's just a gangsta-ass mentor is what it is.
Yes, and
that's what Gene was to Diddy, essentially, because Gene also knew Diddy's dad. Like, they're connected.
I didn't know Gene knew his dad.
Yeah, because where he was selling drugs is the same neighborhood that Gene's from.
I know, but I didn't know he knew him, because I feel like, aren't Gene and Diddy the same age? How old is Gene?
Gene is connected to his dad somehow. Like, they all, because, no, like, I believe. Well, let me say this. Allegedly, I'll say this. Allegedly, I don't know directly connected to. I don't know if it's directly connected to his dad, but I know through the street guys, essentially in that world, on that side of the neighborhood, he knew.
Wait, let me see how old Gene is.
He either knew his dad or knew of his dad to the point where he wanted to be that big dog for Diddy, essentially.
Gene Diddy bodyguard age. That's how I'm typing this into Google. How old are you?
Yeah, please look it up. But no, I know, I'm not going to say for a fact, and I'm not going to say that obviously he knew his dad. He factually knew his dad, because obviously there's an age gap there, and I'm not sure the time of when
I don't know. I feel like he's not well enough.
But I think they're connected, and maybe if you want, you can cut this out too. But I'm pretty sure Gene has said at some point that he like knew of his dad or something. So maybe when he said knew of his dad, I took that as direct, but he knew of his dad because they all are kind of from the same, or not from the same parts of Harlem, but worked in the same neighborhood.
What the fuck? It's telling me everything else. Look at it. It's telling me everything else, but I didn't ask for Heis's age.
Let me see.
Why is his age not on here?
Yeah, and I'm trying to find the death date of Diddy's father.
Oh no, I can't find it. This man is not.
Okay, 1972. So they definitely did not know each other.
You found it? I don't know why I can't find it. Okay.
No,
cool.
I found the date that Diddy's dad passed. Gene deal. So it must have been like a generational thing, buddy.
Yeah, from the neighborhood. Okay, so
yeah,
sorry,
like from
guys.
the neighborhood situation. Sorry.
We had to take a brief pause because we were trying to look up how old Gene was.
We're trying to fact check, essentially.
So I think, the thing is, Diddy's dad had a reputation.
Oh, wait,
so everyone knew. Wait, what?
They might have been, hold on now. Eugene Deal. Oh, no, that's not him. Oh, I was going to say, because I was like, if he's 50 if he's in his 50s, he might have been
There's no way that he knew his dad, because he's not that old. He's like the same age as Diddy, like, or around the same age. There's like no way he like knew him like that. Even if he seen him one day, there's like no way he like knew his dad.
But the thing so just like from the neighborhood, essentially.
Well, no, because Diddy's dad had a huge reputation. So Diddy's dad was very notorious. He was very well known. So that, I mean, I can understand like an interest in who Diddy was from like the people in the neighborhood, but thank you for fact checking me on that. But I think that's what it was. It's like he knew of his dad, but not saying that he necessarily knew his dad. Right. But so my whole thing is, my point was, I didn't believe Gene at first the way he was saying he would speak to Diddy. And then when I watched it back the second time, I'm like, oh, because in gang life, he was above Diddy. And also, by the way, I did not realize Diddy was in a gang for real. Like, and he got so okay. I have a theory. This is all alleged. This is nobody said this in the
moment too.
Yeah, no one said it in the documentary. They didn't even allude to it. All they said is Gene said that essentially, in order for Diddy to be in this gang, like they tricked Diddy essentially to. I feel like Diddy didn't even ask to be in this gang. I actually don't think he wanted to be in the gang.
No, I think he did. He did.
But no, I don't know if he wanted to be in the gang. I just feel like I feel like almost he wanted to just be yes. But they said, nah, nigga, sorry. They were like, you're going to be in the gang.
If you're going to be affiliated, you are either with us or you're not with us. Like, you can't just be hanging around people like that. And
exactly.
This is also my other theory thing too, with the whole how they jumped him in.
Well, that's what I was going to say. But so let's get to how he even got there, though. So Gene says that he essentially he's like, oh, we're about to hang out. So they kind of got Diddy there on false pretenses. That's why I say I don't even know if he wanted to be in the gang, because he didn't know, like, he thought they were just chilling. So he goes to the invitation to hang out. Then the younger people in the gang, I think that was a part of their initiation, was to beat Diddy's ass. And so Diddy realized what was happening. And as they were trying to jump him, he fucking ran. So that's why I say I don't think he wanted to be in the gang, because if he wanted to be in the gang, he would have took that shit, right? Take that.
This is where my red flag this is where my antennas went up. It's not, I believe he wanted to be in the gang because for one, a gang really isn't about to jump you in unless they see actions of you trying to be affiliated with them and being a part of them. If you even say something like, I like you guys, I want to be with you guys, things like that, they will probably even verbate it back to you. Like, well, if you want to be down with us, you have to be jumped in. They might not give you a date. It might not even be like, oh, well, I really want to be jumped in. I want to be a part of this. It might not be that, but it's the fact that you're hanging out with them every single day. I can see how that you're giving it's like, what is the thing? I forgot what that type of consent is, but it's when you enter a space and you're not saying like, this is okay, but like you are aware of everything that could happen. So you're giving consent essentially. I forget what it's like, a specific term of consent it's called. And that's essentially what he's doing. It's like you're hanging around these people. You know that in order to actually be around them, that you either have to rob someone, kill someone, or get jumped in, or something of that nature. You know these things, but you know it hasn't happened to you yet. But
the thing is, that goes to our point, or like the point that we were talking about. He's not really from the streets, so do we know if he really knew the rules of the street? He tries to pretend that he does. Yes. And I don't know.
And OG is going to tell you, like we said, the Gene.
No, I know. But the thing
he's going to let you know.
No, I understand. I get. And I, like, again, this is just like me, like, trying to put out, possibilities. I'm not saying you're wrong. And I think that that's probably the more plausible, like, way to go that makes the most sense. But just for shits and giggles, I'm thinking, like, because of who Diddy's dad was and the reputation that preceded his dad, if they were like, I don't really give a fuck if he wants to be in this gang or not. If he didn't want to be in this gang, he shouldn't be hanging around us. And and maybe it would bring a bit of credibility to the same gang to have the son of, this notorious, but the thing is, he was before he snitched.
Yeah.
He was obviously high up. They had a lot of money. That's why. Yeah, and this is me just coming up with this shit right now. Literally just coming up with this shit right now I don't know where I'm going. I don't know where I'm going.
As we do.
Because this got me, and I think that we're about to go to the same place in a minute. I think we're about to like meet in the middle here. His name is Puff. That was his gang name that was given to him. Puff Daddy. That you made a good point. Why would they want like a son of a snitch? Although he had, before that, he was obviously, pretty high up because of the amount of money. Yeah. Right. Or would it be cooler to have him be their bitch for a while? Like, I don't know. Like, you know what I mean? I would go with that story, or I would go with that theory if that's how it played out to be. But it didn't necessarily play out to be. Like, it turned out that he became the big dog, essentially. But the thing
in the gang,
what gets me in the gang or outside of the gang?
Not in the gang.
outside the gang because, like, yes,
Right.
Gene Simmons is going to be his OG forever.
Okay, first of all, his
essentially.
name is not Gene Simmons. That is a aerobic instructor from the 80s, and Gene Simmons would never. God rest his soul.
God rest his soul. No, okay,
He just
Gene
passed
Deals.
a couple of months ago.
Yeah. Fuck, now I just got off track. It's like, oh, this Gene.
Which is
no,
funny
Gene
because
Deal is going to be his
actually...
OG. But people are going to, the gang is going to go where the money is making him. They're not going to all of a sudden create him as, make him his, like, the gang's bitch. But 89 to 91, 89 to 90 to 91, he started getting motion.
But the thing is, when he first got initiated, he still wasn't anything yet.
Right.
He didn't start. True, he wasn't anything. I think that money talks. To your point, and shortly after, like, again, like, if Diddy was just some guy who had no money, I think that it would have been a lot worse. By the way,
we've never been in a gang, guys. So
never been in a gang.
This is not first-hand knowledge, y'all.
I am
don't really know. This is our agenda.
This is my agenda. This is my fucking podcast, and I will fucking make things up if I want. But
wait.
No. But then he goes to Howard University. So I feel like
wait. Rewind for just 2 seconds. Because
because you wanted to say, your theory.
Other little theory, it's not even a theory. It was just my antennas went up, which might tie into your theory of them wanting Diddy in the gang. Because now that you brought that, because my thing is, I was like, when he came,
do you think he raped him?
Right? No, he wasn't raped by Gene. We'll get there, though.
I'm not laughing, by the way, guys. I'm sorry.
No,
when I'm nervous.
This is how we deal with trauma, y'all. We laugh.
I'm not laughing at any. I need to be so clear about that because I'm laughing because I'm uncomfortable with this entire fucking subject. So it's out of nervousness. So I don't want anybody to be like, they think this is funny. It's not funny. I think this is very serious. But if you hear me laughing, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's because, like, it's so fucking serious, and if you actually put real thought into what we're laughing about, I'm not gonna leave my apartment ever. Like,
yeah, so
this is scary stuff.
The only way to make this a palatable topic is to try to put some levity in it, and it's very hard. So just know that we take this very serious on all angles. So moving forward, just know that. Okay.
Thank you for that announcement. But I was going to say it's interesting. No, because that was needed. Because I can see the comments. I can see. Look at them just key and get raped. No, we're not.
They're laughing at rape. I'm like, not laughing at rape.
And I've experienced assault. Okay, so, like, let's not talk not that.
Oh, sorry.
No, you know about that one little weird.
Okay, I'm
incident.
not.
Yeah, but anyway, we can cut that out.
If you want to talk about it, you can. That's your story to tell.
But levity. I'm a
levity. Mm-hmm. Okay.
But what I was saying is, like, it's interesting that when Diddy arrived to the park and they were going to jump him in the gang, like you said, he ran. To me, I'm like, why would a gang want a gang member in a gang that's going to run from getting jumped in? Like, I wouldn't want that in my gang. I would.
But that's why
keep your pussy ass over there.
Yeah. But no, that's why I said, like, those are the things that made me think
that's what was interesting to me, where I was like.
But yeah. But then when they said he ran. Okay, so the reason why I also.
But I do believe he wanted to be in the gang. Because he wouldn't have came back. He would have stepped.
I feel like we're doing one of those things where Curtis and I often, like, will have long-winded, like, debates about things and end up being kind of saying the same thing. Like, I think that he didn't be in the gang, but, like, I don't think he wanted to do what it took to be in the gang. Gang.
Yeah,
you know
I think he wanted to be in the gang. I just don't think he expected to get jumped in that night. I didn't think he was expecting an ass whooping. I think that night, he was the mark in the park.
But I honestly, I'm like, I know I kind of, yes. Oh, shit.
He literally was the mark in the park that night.
But I know I kind of threw it in there. I don't even know if anybody heard me say it, but I was like, do you think that they did anything sexual with him? Because I don't know. Because, again, I'm trying to figure out how we got.
No, I don't think Gene plays that shit. I'm going to be honest.
No. I'm not saying Gene did it, but, like, do you think anybody else. You know what I'm saying?
No, I don't think he plays that shit at all. Like, I don't even think he would be in a gang that would gang rape
that's
another
fair.
guy. You know what I mean?
I guess what I'm trying to do is come like, and so my other theory will come up soon. So, okay, I'm going to go with you on this because I also don't feel like Gene plays that shit either. But I had to pose the question, do you think that this is one of the first experiences he had with like, this is how you get authority?
Well,
that's why.
No, we're going to get there. Because we're getting there.
Yeah.
We're not at there yet. I will give you what.
I agree. I don't think we're at the, I agree. I don't think we're there yet. But I just wanted to pose, because I don't know if anybody else was thinking that who watched the documentary, it's
am I allowed to jump back to childhood real quick?
No, not yet, because I know where you're going, and that's where I want, because that comes in later, and that's where I think this really starts. But you have to move forward to move backwards, because
that's what I didn't like about this documentary. I will be honest, y'all.
You know what? It's not.
The timeline was terrible.
That's actually a very fair point. They were jumping so fucking much in this documentary. Okay.
We went from talking about a lawsuit to talking about the settlement in 97 to then talking about Kim Porter back in 90.
I think they did. I almost feel like they did that on purpose to trick us into like not realizing that they didn't cover some shit that I would have wanted them to cover. But that's my speculation of the editing.
Yeah, okay. I'm glad you had thought that too, because I literally had that in my notes. I was like, the timeline really, really irritated me.
It jumps, back and forth, and which is why that we're having the problem that we're having right now. Like, sorry, I had to stop the podcast a couple of times because we were jumping so much that I was like, I felt like we were going to be giving you guys whiplash. But in talking it through. True. I think
which is going to happen if we're following the timeline of the documentary.
That's the problem we're having, because the documentary's own timeline jumps so much that it
will be in
really
early 2000s and back to the mid 90s. And you're just like, okay, like I get you're trying to tie things, but it would have been better if you would have created an actual calendar as you were doing it. Some type of
it was a little messy.
Some type of timeline. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a little messy in that regards. Oh, also, again, okay, so now we're moving into so Diddy's in a gang. He's straight up in a gang now.
Same gang. He's in the same gang.
In the same damn gang that we've been talking about the whole time. And so then we get introduced to more of his high school friends and things like that. His friends that are still chronically lying for him, allegedly. That's what I think. Because some of this shit didn't make no fucking sense to me.
4 of them niggas, but Tim's.
Yeah, but
niggas was lying.
And it's making me side-eye them like, what did you fucking do? They need to be looked into. Okay? They need to be looked into. They may need to be added to the lawsuits. I don't know. So
they're witnesses for sure.
So we're at Howard University. I know. Yep. I don't know what they witnessed, but they anyway. So Diddy's in a gang, and also now he's at an Ivy League, historically black college, Howard University.
Which that's cute. Kudos. Sorry, that's the only shout I get Diddy. HBC.
Howard University is an incredible university. It is so distinguished. And that is where he really develops his love of music.
And side question. Yeah. Howard's based in DC, right?
Yes.
Is that that's DC. Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
Why did you need to know that though?
I don't know. In my head, I just had to
Why did you need to know that so bad?
I don't know.
That was not something that you could have silently looked up for yourself?
You actually are right about that. Sorry.
No, I was curious. I was like, is this going somewhere like DC? Do I need to know something like Olivia Pope?
Well, DC and the parties, because he was throwing parties. So like that, the DC thing is like
he wasn't throwing parties there though.
Yeah, he was throwing parties there too. He was throwing parties at the university.
I mean, I'm sure he was throwing. I know, but it wasn't a part of the documentary.
No, that's a filler. I'm filling that in. He was also throwing parties.
This is your intrusive thoughts coming out.
It is. It is.
You're like, hold on.
I promise you, I might have another intrusive thought that's going to connect this one to everything else we were just talking about. I promise you.
You know what? I can't wait till that beautiful brain of yours connects it. He's gonna land the plane. I know there is a reason why you needed to know about DC, and I know you're gonna figure it out.
It's going to land. At least I hope.
There is I believe that there is a reason why you needed to know DC, and it's your brain is still figuring it out.
It's turning, but There's a
No,
dot
I want to know.
There's a fucking
There
dot
is a
there.
reason. I actually really believe there is a reason why you needed to know that it was DC, and I can't wait till you figure out what it is. There's something that like, because again, the whole reason I had Curtis come on here is because you know like a lot of random stuff. So I feel like there is a reason why you wanted to know if it was DC, because it like something is happening.
My mind is like a mousetrap. Like something will trigger something, and I'm going through the hallway. Oh, can't get there. So then I like, that's a thought. Then I go back around. Oh, can't get there. That's a thought.
There is. I know there's a reason,
and it comes together.
Maybe okay. When I start talking about it more, I feel like you might. I feel like there is a reason though. Okay, we'll figure it out. Anyway, so he's at Howard University, and that's when they say that he kind of like really hones in on like what he wants to do in life, which is become this music mogul producer. And spoiler, he does it. And that's actually where. Oh, you know what? You're right, though, Curtis. I figured it out. You're right. He did throw parties. That's how he met Heavy D.
Yeah, there was something. I'm like, no, there.
That is how he met Heavy D.
I just didn't know it was going to come so quickly because Heavy D is also, a huge part of this conversation.
That's how. Oh my God, you're so right. That is how it happened. Okay. Well, you know what it is. You needed to know it was DC because we needed to know how it moved to New York.
Yeah,
which is important
because it started in DC and he was able to.
It correct. You're very right. So my apologies. I didn't see where you were going with it, and we landed the plane like I knew we fucking would. So am I keeping all this in? Funny. I don't know. Probably. That was fun. So Heavy D was a huge artist, and I don't know the whole history of Heavy D and how he got his start, but when Diddy met him, he was already somewhat established, right? Which I feel like you could fill that in.
Yes, he was signed to Uptown Records, which
already, right?
Yeah, already. He was already signed to Uptown Records. So Uptown Records was owned by let me fact check if he was already signed to have. I'm pretty sure.
No, he was. I'm pretty like that's what they said in the documentary, but I don't know how he. My whole point is I don't really know how Heavy D got to be Heavy D at that time. It doesn't really matter for this storyline. It's not really about Heavy D, but just know Heavy D was a huge artist at the time, or up and coming artist at the time. And what Curtis is saying is correct. He was signed to Uptown, and Uptown was owned by Andre Harrell. Andre Harrell.
It's one of the pins we're about to pull out, by the way. We're about to pull out one of the pins.
So Diddy sees an opportunity here. Because again, like we said, this is Howard University is where he decided what his path in life was going to be, and it was to be a music mogul. And honestly, we can't take this away from Diddy. He is an incredible businessman in the sense of
he has an ear. He has an ear.
Yeah,
he's smart.
He has an ear. He's smart.
Great PR. Like, and this is something. See, if you guys see me keep looking down, it's because I'm looking at my notes. But this is something like. We skipped not a little bit, but in high school, I want to mention how his friends mentioned that he would play. He was on the basketball team. He was on the football team, and this.
I had that in my notes too, because I was like, also they did his backhanded compliment. They're like, I mean, he was on the team, but I don't know if he was good.
And this is what I wanted to say. Now that we brought up how much of a genius, I don't want to credit this man, but he was when it came to PR, business, and things like that, because. If you look at it, he's been doing things like this since he was a kid, keeping up with his image. Like first of all, he joined a gang. His whole entire career from here to now has always been about image and being able to keep up the image and finding out the next game plan to elevate his image. Like he's been amazing at that. And he's been doing it since he's a kid. I don't know where he learned this from, but like he elevated himself from being the mark in the park to now he's in a chain gang. People call him Puffy in high school now. And they call him Puffy, but which there's multiple reasons. They said he gave his name. It was because he puffs out his chest a lot when he gets upset. There's a couple reasons. I know in the documentary, Tim said when he came back home, his neighborhood friend Tim, when he came back home from the military or whatever, that they call him Puffy now. No, it was, I've never heard that. And this entire
I just made that up.
Because it was essentially it was because of his anger management issues. Like would get so, which essentially does.
He would just get
career.
Like he just like
huff and puff, and he puffed his chest out. He gets angry. But I'm saying this, so he was able to re-image himself geniusly from being a mark in the park to being in a gang to being puffy to now he's a promoter to now where he's now starting to mingle with music executives, Andre Harrell, which is where we're at now. He's able to re-image himself again. Like he keeps being able to recreate a even more polished image to himself that benefits him. Is what
but no, absolutely. And he's the first client he had was himself. Because to your point, he completely reinvented himself into this person that he wanted us to
wasn't
perceive him
gangster,
as.
but he wanted people to think he's gangster. So what'd he do? He joined a gang.
But but the thing is, he's not stupid either because he could have just done the gang life and not went to school. But he knew what he wanted to do. He wanted to elevate himself, and he knew he needed to go to school to do that. And he went to
not a gangster.
But he made sure he went to a really prestigious, historically Black college because he wanted to still stay in the culture. Yes, he's very intentional. He was never a good rapper, but he ended up having how many records?
But guess what? You be a rapper to get clout, right? To be even more cool. Like he's constantly been doing this throughout his entire career. And they even, not to jump ahead, but just for a tiny second, when they mentioned Kim Porter and how he would bring glam around all the time whenever they would travel, which was, okay, now that's pushing up his heterosexual image. You see what I'm saying? Like, everything is super intentional with this guy. Like the Kim Porter, making sure she looked good, making sure he looked good, making sure that as a couple they look good. Like, he's an evil genius. He's an evil genius.
Yes, he is an evil genius for sure. Heavy D, he sees Heavy D. He gets in the same atmosphere as Heavy D. And Heavy D is signed to Uptown Records, which is ran by Andre Harrell. And what all the people that were in the documentary were saying, including Tim, which is who I only really care about what he says, but he was saying the same thing. So I was like, okay, they not lying. That Diddy, and we know this to be true. He's a hustler. And in order for him, he knew he needed to get into Uptown somehow. So he would like pretty much just like harass Heavy D, like, invite me here, there, all over the places. They even say he allegedly slept outside of Andre Harrell's car. So to the point where he wore them down. Yeah, he wore them down to the point where they're like, fine, you can be our intern, fetch us our coffee, like fax our contracts, copy, like, you know what I mean? He was their intern. He didn't get paid much. But the thing is, Diddy is used to living a certain lifestyle. So although he knew he had to be an intern, which interns usually get paid either $0 or just a couple of dollars, he's not a man that has ever not had stuff. And so that wasn't going to fucking work for him. So while doing his internship at Uptown, he begins to do party promoting. And at this point, I think that we're now have graduated Howard University. We're in New York at this point. He's working for Uptown and he starts party promoting, and him and Heavy D come up with this, what could have been a legendary moment in time for the culture, which was the celebrity basketball game. And they had the people that were at this celebrity basketball game, and it was supposed to raise money for, by the way, they didn't even say what AIDS foundation. They just said a AIDS foundation, which makes me think that no AIDS foundation got this money because they can't even name the damn foundation.
I found that interesting too, considering how homophobic the Black community would have been, and especially the hip hop community would have been at that time, coming right out of the AIDS epidemic. That was noted. I didn't have much to say. I was just like,
and like, it would have made more sense if it was like, oh, Magic Johnson's, like, because obviously Magic Johnson is like a notable Black figure, basketball player from the LA Lakers who contracted HIV. And he's, I think, the one that kind of turned the page on that this was not just what people were deeming as a gay disease, which is so ridiculous. It's like, I mean, yes, it did hit the gay community very hard and unfortunately, but it wasn't just, gay people contracting it. This is just a sexual transmitted disease. It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with your sexual preferences.
Your sexual orientation.
None of that. It could happen to anybody if you're not using protection. That's what it is. And so I was like,
I said something that made it sound like that was a gay disease because I'm gay myself, y'all. Like,
no. You didn't.
I know. I'm glad you pointed that out.
No, because that is, but that is a good point, because it's like them not. That's why I'm saying, for me, that's only the reason I was like, oh, it would have made, to me, make more sense if it was like Magic Johnson, because unfortunately, in the Black community, and especially in rap and hip hop at that time, there was a lot of stigma, and they were just they were not kind to the gay community. They just weren't. And so it is interesting that they were doing an AIDS foundation specifically out of any foundation that they could be doing.
Yeah,
you know, it's so
very,
that did put some red flags for me.
That jumped out to me too. I was like, okay, interesting.
Yeah, so you're not wrong with that. That's why I was like, if it was Magic Johnson's, especially since it was a celebrity basketball game, that would have made more sense to me. But then they just said AIDS Foundation. Yeah, like I don't know. It was weird. It sounds like it was a front, and I think that I'm valid in this theory, because then when we get into it, so this celebrity basketball game was the City College basketball game, which we kind of mentioned at the top of the show, which we kind of spoiled, but I mean, it's been out for 30 plus years. If you didn't know about it, like, I'm sorry, like, we're not really spoiling it. Like, it's been out and available to know about for 30 years. So I'm not apologizing.
As you should not.
So the City College incident, where it was a celebrity basketball game, was put together by Diddy and Heavy D. And they got celebrities to come play in this basketball game. Like, they said Mike Tyson, who was hot at the time, LL Cool J. And Diddy promoted this shit so fucking well, they said in the documentary. I'm not familiar with like New York radio stations like that, or of the time, but they said that it was promoted heavily on a radio station called WBLS 98.7 KISS. And the way that they talk about it is that must have been the radio station of the time. And it was like 90s essentially,
babies. We know how the radio station.
Oh yeah, no.
Listening to a hip hop, like that's what we would listen to get our like little pop culture. If you weren't buying like tabloid magazines,
yeah.
So it's like, yeah, that
absolutely.
Made sense
I also,
to me.
Yeah, and they're like, so essentially, it was promoted so much on these radio stations. It was like, it became the thing where like you had to be there. So the thing is, at City College, where they were hosting this basketball game, the way they were promoting it, the way they were selling these tickets, it was as if you were selling it for like a 10,000 seat arena. And the director of the documentary chimes in like, oh, so it was at a 10,000 seat arena. He was like, no, I said it was like they were selling it for a 10,000 seat arena. The City College arena could only hold 2,700 people.
That is so crazy.
Allegedly, and this is why I think that they actually pocketed the money, and I don't think any foundation got any of this, the proceeds of this money, is because the way they were promoting it is like they was trying to make money. Like they was trying to
like
make
they were
money.
trying to sell tickets.
And they allegedly oversold it, which is what causes the devastation that happens.
And it's like, yes, it's allegedly, but like the way the witnesses and the eye testimony from that event is like they did oversell. Like there was like,
but the thing is, you have to say allegedly because they were never convicted of it. So
yeah,
for safety, we have to say allegedly.
Allegedly,
because I am not getting sued. I have no money to be sued. So we're saying allegedly, although wink, wink. Okay.
Yeah.
You can read my silence, read my face. Allegedly.
Because I would like to ask, who's showing up to an event that they don't have tickets for?
Well, people do that all.
Well, yeah, you're right. That's actually dumb, but you get the gist.
People do that constantly.
All the time.
All the time, actually.
What is it called?
Scalping.
Scalping. Scalping.
Scabbing is no. Scabbing would be when you cross a line. Like if there's like a union and they're like not protesting, but they're scabbing is like when you cross a union line in work, because people are protesting their job, and if you cross the line, that's scabbing.
Okay, learn something new.
But what you're talking about is scalping, which was what people do with like either they buy a bunch of tickets and they resell it for a profit, or they sell counterfeit tickets and cheat people.
Sell it outside the event.
Yeah, outside of the event, which is why people show up, because they're like, oh, I can get a better ticket, or whatever they're just trying to get in.
But even then, there was
people,
a massive crowd outside that event. Like, way too many.
No, I am. Right. So I think that there were people that had no tickets hoping that they could get in. And I do think that they oversold it at the same time. Allegedly. But that's what I think. And that's where I'm sticking with it. But
well, you want to know what's interesting about this time of the 91 with the college, this event is in the same year. This is one of Diddy's first rape allegations. Can I say rape?
Yeah, you can say rape.
Okay,
I've said rape like 5 times.
You're right. But this is I want to say her name is Jodi Dickerson Neal. And she was a college student at Syracuse, and she was looking, I can't remember the exact details of the lawsuit. So it's pretty much, she was a college student at Syracuse University, I think trying to get a job for Diddy. I think they met for dinner at some point. Allegedly, he drugged her during this dinner, raped her, filmed the rape, and was showing it amongst his peers. And
interesting. So this is not, by the way, this is not in the documentary. This is just Curtis.
No, this is not in the documentary.
Yeah, this is why I invited Curtis on. He just knows a lot of random shit. So this is a bonus content. Thank you.
Yeah, like, bonus. So that was filed recently. Like all these, I'm gonna bring up a couple of the lawsuits.
Oh, is this a new lawsuit?
It's like all the lawsuits that I will bring up are the ones that have been filed within the since either before Cassie or since Cassie.
Interesting.
Cassie's lawsuit. Because Cassie's lawsuit, she filed it in October, and I want to say Joy Dickerson, I want to say she filed it around the same time too. Her lawsuit.
All right. And by the way, I do want to really bring home the point that it's not unusual or uncommon for people who have experienced sexual assault to not come forward until many, many, many years later. It takes people a very long time to accept or even be able to have the courage to come forward. And especially as we go through this documentary, Diddy became a force to be reckoned with. That's just not somebody that you can speak against. Or maybe she did. I have no idea. I don't know the ins and outs of this particular case. But it's very possible she did, say something and just nothing was done about it.
We can look at the Cassie lawsuit over and over again and see exactly how these girls get lured into this Diddy trap, essentially.
Right. But thank you for that, because that's very interesting to kind of to find out that there was something that had happened around this time. And this is City College. To go back to City College, though, that whether it was oversold or not, there was way too many fucking people there. And what ended up happening, I don't even think they didn't say, but I don't even know if any basketball was ever played, because what happened was people were trying to get in. And this has happened at a lot of other sporting events too. When it's too crowded, what happens is it starts creating people getting suffocated. I think this kind of happened at the Travis Scott concert. And so what happened was, Astroworld. So what happened was people trying to get in, and then people getting stampeded on and trampled or suffocated in the crowd. And this is when these friends of Diddy try to act as if, still covering for him to this day, that Diddy, to take some culpability from him and what happened of the 9 people that perished that day, that he was somehow running around giving people fucking CPR. Like, I doubt he was. Gene says this. He said he never saw Diddy do that. The people,
and there's not one news report from that night saying Diddy was helping victims in this event. Not one.
And so the families end up suing Diddy and Heavy D. And this lawsuit goes on for well over 6 years. One of the people that lost a family member, her name was Sonia, one of the victims of the City College incident. Diddy apparently gave her a ticket, personally, to go to this, because at the time he knew her through his girlfriend at the time. And her brother knew Diddy. And according to her brother, who was in the documentary, Diddy, during that, the lawsuits, in order to, he essentially was he was saying that Diddy was allegedly trying to pay him off to like get this sorted. So, and this is not the first time we've heard of Diddy offering people hush money. They did not, this is one of the things that they did not go over, but in the late 90s case that happened at the shooting with Shine, J-Lo at that nightclub, that's what Shine alleges Diddy did, paid him off to take the fall. So this is not the first time we've heard.
Eye testimony, the victim in that shooting said she saw Diddy shoot her in the face. Like, they were both, like, mind you, Shine's not totally innocent in that case too, because he also had a gun and was shooting.
Yeah.
But Diddy was the one who shot the one who was the victim from that shooting.
And she said that she literally saw him do it. So, but what happened was Diddy put a bait and switch and put it all on Shine. And then Shine ends up taking the whole rap and spending almost 10
was the one who ended up sending to jail. He pretty much, which is interesting that Diddy ends up snitching on a man for a crime that he didn't even do, and his dad snitched on people for crimes. Apple doesn't fall far from the tree.
That's actually a good point. He comes from a line of snitches.
Line of fucking rats.
Right, he's a rat. But the thing is, the City College incident happens, 9 people die. There's a civil case from all the victims' families that go on for 6 years. According to the documentary, they settle. Oh, actually, what I was saying is the guy's sister, Sonia's brother, he says that Diddy offers him hush money. He ends up taking it, but it's just like, he
offered him $50,000 for one in 1996 or 97, whenever this case started to resolve, which is completely insulting because they were saying that Diddy's net worth was in the millions.
Oh yeah,
I can't remember the exact net worth, but
he wasn't like rich because this is again this is where I'm going to now is what you would think that this whole City College thing happening would have completely stopped his career,
shut him down.
Yeah, but in a weird way, it did the polar opposite and made him nefarious. I almost think helping create that monster of like, he's a real bad boy. You know what I'm saying? He is this big bad guy, but at the end of the day, there were that many people interested in this basketball game that it created what happened. So in a weird way, people were just so intrigued by him, and it created.
But you also have to wonder in that moment, now that we know how media works today, right? We have to wonder, who was helping him with that narrative? And that's a genuine question. I personally believe, because you're right, like to your point, something like that.
Well, it's probably Uptown.
It
was probably Uptown because again, who was helping him with the event? Heavy D. Heavy D was part of the lawsuit too.
Yeah, my question would be, he was an intern at that time.
Yeah, but the thing is, his name and Heavy D's name was on that, and because he's an intern for Uptown, it would be in Andre Harrell's best interest to protect him.
Right.
Because if that's still his name attached to it, no matter if Diddy's an intern, if he's his driver, if it's whatever.
Right.
So,
well, I'm going to put a pin in this because the story keeps going. I'm going to put a pin in this because I agree. I 1000% agree.
I mean,
but I don't want to jump the gun. I know exactly where you're going.
Put a pin in it. It's all going to make sense. So I do think that, just know that I think that would be the person that you're looking for that helped with that narrative in the media, because to your point, he was not huge yet. But by the time like all these lawsuits get settled, all of a sudden he really is. So, interesting. And
with his own record label by that time, who was funded by who? Andre.
That exactly. Well, let's go move right on to him starting Bad Boy. So then he starts Bad Boy in the midst of this whole scandal, and he kind of creates a new version. It's so funny.
Well, wait. He didn't start Bad Boy right out of that. He went from interning, because I want to be clear, because I really need to connect the dots for this. He went from interning at Uptown, right? Then from interning, he became their A&R, which is a music exec. That's a huge jump. Like, let's be very clear. That is a huge jump. I don't think people understand how important and how much impact an A&R exec has in the music industry. Like, they're the gatekeepers. It's not the ones who are signing the actual checks. It's A&R people are the ones who saying, this is going on the radio, this is going on your album, this is not going on the album, this artist is cool, this artist is not, right?
So that, yeah, but that's the whole point. Like, that's what you do as an intern. Those are the things that you're learning. And to your point, he does seem like he cuts the line.
He
very
jumps
quickly,
the ladder
but
completely in a year, Pia. A year. That's
but
great.
I think it has everything to do with the city college thing. So within the 6 years of this whole lawsuit going, he then ends up starting Bad Boy. And that is a very fast jump to being an intern and then in 6 years having your own label and also having heavy hitters on your label.
Mind you, when he started this label, Andre Harrell, I just want to put this detail in here too. Andre Harrell fired Diddy from Uptown. So he was fired from Uptown as A&R before he got the Bad Boy record label. But the thing that always makes me go, is he fired him, right? But he kept paying him until he started his Bad Boy.
So that detail wasn't in the documentary, so I wasn't even aware of that.
Yeah, so that's what I also find really interesting. Like, I truly, truly find Diddy's and Andre Harrell's relationship extremely interesting, just from start to finish. They seem to be close. I'm not going to say anything, but they seem to be close. And Andre Harrell fires Diddy because he says, in his Andre Harrell's words, I knew Diddy could be so much greater, and I did not want to stop him. So I told him, you can't have his job anymore. I'm going to fire you, but I'm going to keep paying you until you get your next label off the ground. So that it's like these situations are unique in a music business
no,
relationship.
Absolutely. I do think, no, absolutely. So then he starts Bad Boy and he comes up with this whole era. So it's interesting that he infiltrates this notoriously really rugged, rough and tough industry. And he Diddifies it, and he's like, okay, I've legitimately kind of infiltrated it with kind of living the lifestyle that they have created. But he, again, going back to, we meet a 4-year-old dressed like a 30-year-old with the rings and the watches and the bracelets, right? And he's like, no, I'm going to make it cool even for a thug to dress nice. And that's what he does. He starts doing the glossy suits. It's called the glossy era.
Yeah,
and it works.
The glossy era, the shiny suits. We remember the shiny
suits. And you have one of his biggest artists, which is the notorious B.I.G. And I remember, you have the songs and the music, all of the Versace and just all the name brands on the flossing of the watches, and that became then the new standard, which is a literal evil genius. He's able to have his cake and eat it too. He's able to take over this notoriously rugged hip hop culture and almost classify it in a way. It's cool to look good. It's cool to be flossy and stuff like that. And then this is when he starts becoming one of the richest black men in America. He becomes a 1% of the 1%. This man is unstoppable, and it's crazy how fast it's happening for him.
Because he gets cut. They said he gets cut a check because he goes up to his friend.
Yes.
He's like, he has a check, and Tim is the one who's like, oh, he's a part of the millionaire. They don't say who cut the check. I want to know who cut the check. I don't know. I genuinely don't.
They said that he got no, they did. They did say. They said he got I forget, but they did say it.
They said,
they
said it was
Sony?
advanced. They didn't say, I never heard the name Sony.
I don't know. Whatever he was, I think it was Clive. Was it Clive Davis? It was Clive. He was working with Clive.
Clive Davis, his mentor. He's also
it's Clive
Harrell,
Davis.
His mentor.
So he got a $55 million advance. It was Clive Davis. And so
interesting.
Then enters in this, and they did this a couple of times in the documentary, and I fucking hate when documentaries do this, because it's, at this point, turn the lights on, take off the voice muffler. We know who it is. I don't know who it is, but whoever they're trying to hide from. Okay, so sorry, I don't know if I'm not making any sense, but it's going to make sense in a second.
In which part? The guy that was muffled? I know. We know who he is. Don't we know who he is?
So in the documentary, there is a former employee, and they have this man in the dark. They have said that they're disguising his voice because they don't, essentially he has fears for his life. He doesn't want people to know. He doesn't want to have a target on his back.
Life.
Yeah. So they're trying to obscure his identity. I hate when people do this in documentaries because I don't really think that they are doing a great job of obscuring these people's identities, because either their silhouette, I can still see a silhouette of them, or they haven't altered their voice enough, in my opinion, because like I personally don't know who this person is. I'm sure you probably figured it out because you are like more like deep dive into the culture of them.
Yeah.
But my whole thing is, if even though I might not know, because I like don't know like all of the people a part of that crew, definitely the people who he's trying to hide from will be able to figure it out.
No, the details he's giving in the story, the images that they're showing.
It's not even just that too. That's the big giveaway. That they did the voice changer on the guy, but I feel like you can still kind of hear his voice. Like you could at least hear you can hear people's isms. Like if they did a voice changer on you, I would know it was you. Like you have a certain way that you know what I mean though? Like the same, I think that would be for me. Like we talk in a certain way, like the animation of how we speak. Like you're like, I just don't really feel like he's hiding anything whatsoever. And then to your fucking point, then this man is saying he's a former employee. He's showing us unseen footage. And I wrote down in my notes, this reminds me
telling us his job title. I'm like, you're telling us everything.
Wait, what was his job title again?
He was producer and a videographer.
Oh, yes, he did say that. That's like really specific. Like, I'm sure that there's I'm sure there's like a lot of people, I'm sure over the time that has had like maybe the position. I'm not sure. But I feel like, again, he's showing unseen footage. Like, if I was a person in Diddy's camp, I would be like, who was around during this time when that was happening? Who was like, and you would start being able to deduce and putting into a small pool of people. I'm just saying, so it reminds me of that documentary, Don't Fuck with Cats, where like people on the internet are bored. And this also kind of made me think of like when they were showing them Tim's cabin in the woods as well. I feel like we were showing too much information, like aerial shots of Tim's house. And we were just you know what I'm saying? Like, Don't Fuck with Cats. It's a documentary on Netflix. And they found the guy who was like fucking with cats and then ended up fucking with people because of like little videos that he would put out. And like, people would like see a doorknob and be like, oh, I know what kind of doorknob that is. Or a vacuum cleaner in the corner. And I'm just saying that you'll be found out. Like, Tim's cabin in the woods, I guarantee if I go online right now, someone's telling me the geographical location of where the fuck that man's cabin is right the fuck now. And you already fucking know, and he's about to reveal who I don't know who the goddamn person is. Who is it?
I suspect it's Little Rod Jones, who was one of the people who filed the lawsuits last year. If you guys don't remember, there was a lawsuit that came out, which was a huge it was one of the bigger lawsuits that came out post Cassie. And it's pretty much about this guy alleging so much in this lawsuit. Like everything he's saying in this documentary, you can align it with what's in the lawsuit. Like he's saying that he saw him drinking, like drugging people with the drinks and stuff. He was sexually assaulted in the way that he was sexually assaulted. He brings up the red light room and how there was minors. Yeah. It's just like, he brings up
he shows the footage of the guy.
KK or whatever. Chief of staff.
Diddy? Yes. There's always a woman that they have and they do that. Like Epstein, they kind of talk about Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. And it's the same thing. Diddy is the music mogul version of an Epstein. And I guess that KK girl is his,
Ghislaine.
That's not her name.
Pia knows I'm not the best with names. I'm not the best at pronunciation.
The funny thing is, I'm fucking not either, but that is not her name. What is I just said it, and I don't even remember what it is. Ghislaine. Yes, it's Ghislaine.
Yeah, Ghislaine.
Okay.
But also in this thing that he said too, that was so specific. He mentions how like he would get sent out to clubs to like bring girls. And that's literally specifically in Little Rod's lawsuit of how he would be in Miami because he stayed in Diddy's New York home, Miami home, and LA home while he was producing the Love album that came out a couple years ago. But what he said in his lawsuit was that Diddy would have him, unbeknownst to him, because he was new, so he didn't really understand what he was doing. But Diddy would send him out to the clubs in Miami, the strip club, wearing a bad boy hat. And when he was like, okay, when you wear this hat, the people who know will know. So he's sending him out, and that hat.
I do remember that.
That hat is a signal for sex workers to be like, Diddy's in town, start popping your pussy. I know who you're talking about now. I know who you're talking about now. To lure new girls in, green girls, and be like, oh, he's wearing a bad boy hat, he's with Diddy, and to pretty much and it's the start of coercion and sex trafficking. Because for those who don't know the actual definition of sex trafficking, it's not always paying someone to perform sexual things for you. Sex trafficking can mean, I'll give you this internship if you suck my dick. Sex trafficking can mean, bring this girl from the club back home, and then we're going to coerce her into having sex. It's not always straight up transactional between customer and consumer. It can be,
oftentimes sex trafficking, there is no consent when there's sex trafficking. This is all
that's not necessarily true either.
That's sex work.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, sex work. Sorry.
Sex trafficking and sex work are completely two different things. Sex, not always, but in sex work, typically that person has entered into that particular occupation willingly, and they are being compensated, right? And
it's all consensual.
Yes. In trafficking, that's like being pimped out. That's being forced to perform sexual acts against their will. It can sometimes be actually being sold across state lines or even into other countries. There's different forms of sex trafficking. There's no consent.
Sorry. There's
no consent.
There's many forms of sex trafficking, and essentially what Diddy was doing was having him coordinate sex trafficking by putting on that hat.
And he was luring them in. So they're thinking they're just going to party with Diddy. And then that's where all of we hear the baby oil, the drugging of the drinks, allegedly. All of this is alleged because he has not been proven guilty of anything. And we have to say that because we have to say it. But that's what is all being alleged. Like, these girls are coming to the house to just have a good time. And then they're getting plied with alcohol or it being drugged, and then like these baby oils that may have some type of chemical in it to make them numb or whatever. And
it's
so
alleged
then they're
GHB that hasn't been appreciated yet. All of this is just allegations at this point. That he has not been convicted, or none of this has been proven in a court of law, but it's obviously been talked about in this documentary. So essentially this man that is being now we know we think it's Little Rod. We'll go with that. It's Little Rod. He's actually giving us the insider scoop of what was happening at what we are now what they're now being known as is called freak offs. And he was giving this. He was around this time, I think, around Diddy, between, what did they say? It was 2014, 15. I think he was around all the way up until recently. I want to say 2022. I don't know. I would have to fact check myself about that. But what's interesting, I also want to bring up, now that we're on Little Rod, because I do think it was him a lot. I don't know if anyone else has read the lawsuit, but also what they allege in there, that's also that he was talking about was Diddy would show me videos of males having sex, and he would say, this is what people have to do to get further in the music industry, which, put a pin in that, because Andre Harrell, let's put a pin in that. But allegedly that video that Diddy was showing Little Rod was a video that Stevie J was having sex with another male prostitute. And Stevie J...
so you're thinking the person in the video is Stevie J? Okay.
Yeah, that's what they're alleging. And then there's a screenshot of the video in the lawsuit, and it does look like a younger version of Stevie J. I'm not.
Oh, there's pictures?
There's pictures, there's images all through this lawsuit.
What? Oh my God, I did not know that.
It's
They
insane.
they can say that? I mean, they can show that?
They did. They didn't say it was
God.
Stevie J. They didn't say Stevie J. They said known music producer, rapper, or whatever.
And if we are going with its little rod, he also alleges in like these they show footage of this. He said like the rooms are red. That's kind of signaling that it's a freak off party. But he was also saying like at one of the times he would do like this, like it almost seems like his tell of when he was changing into like the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde of his monstrous behavior. Diddy, his eye would like start twitching and tweaking. And he would like scan the room and he like picked out two girls. And according to allegedly who we think is Little Rod in retelling all of this stuff, they seemed underage and they didn't come out for like a full 24 hours. And that brings me to the documentary jumps back and forth. It brings me back to Tim, his childhood friend. And Tim gives us even more insight on how they were raised. And this is so interesting to me because it got me to thinking, who got Diddy to be who the fuck Diddy is? And it's his own mother. It's Janice. Because Janice is essentially running a goddamn brothel up in there.
Yeah.
So, because like, think about how Tim describes how they were in that fucking house. He's saying that Janice and Tim's mom, they would often have these legendary parties in the neighborhood. And they remember they're in this big, beautiful house. So it's not some trap house. This is a fucking nice ass house that they're doing this in. And he would have gay people, lesbian people, heterosexual couples. It was it was like a fucking buffet of whatever you desired. Like that was available in that house. And he said sometimes they would walk in, there would be a fucking couple like fully butt naked fucking. That was their environment. What does that fucking sound like to you, Curtis?
It sounds like all the rumors that we hear in Hollywood about the Diddy
freak
parties.
offs.
People, yeah.
Literally, these are freak. He's been seeing his mom invented freak offs. If this is all true.
Well, also, it reminds me of that exact quote of the friend being like, sometimes you'd walk in a room and you would see two people fucking. We would hear that about Diddy's parties here in LA. Like, sometimes like the joke, don't walk into the wrong room. Like it was always that joke perpetuating.
It's always been so interesting to me that he had these like freak off parties and how he came up with and how he got so comfortable doing this is because that is literally all he knows. That is what he grew up in. And he just made it on a much more prominent, bigger scale. And so then that's where,
well, also you have
that's where the white parties come into play. And then that's where some of these other celebrities are getting tied to it because they show images of Leonardo DiCaprio there. By the way, I'm not accusing anybody of partaking in anything illegal or illicit, but in the documentary, they do allude to people like Leonardo DiCaprio. They show images of Ashton Kutcher. Vivica A. Fox was they essentially said that it was the Hollywood elite was there. And they're not saying that any of these people did anything, but the lawyer that was featured in the documentary has said that there are celebrities that are a part of her lawsuit that will be definitely being brought up when this case goes to trial.
But I know I can't wait to find out those names because there are videos circulating.
That's what they're saying.
Of these freak offs. But what begs the question, because we think of everything that Diddy's accused of: rape, sex trafficking, a lot, drugging, a lot of unconsensual stuff. It begs the question of how much of what was going on at his mom's parties consensual as well?
Ooh,
because if you're an adult allegedly dabbling with teenagers, essentially, because teenagers do, like, it's in that lawsuit that teenagers or underage girls were at this party, at least in Little Rod's lawsuit. He was saying like those girls were not
in what's his name, Tony Busby. He's representing like 30 of these people, and I think 9 of them are people who say that they were underage when this happened.
Yeah, there's another lawsuit. There's 2 lawsuits actually. One 17-year-old boy, another 14-year-old boy. One, I believe, went to a party, and he ended up in a room with Diddy, essentially. Like, he drank a drink, he felt weird, and Diddy was trying to get him to do things, and he wasn't responding.
Oh, I remember that.
Essentially.
I remember that one. Yeah.
But yeah, it just begs the question, okay, so like, if he's learning these freak offs and applying them in his adult life, and he was a witness to all these all of his mom's parties, it makes me wonder how much of it was consensual, because you do have to think these are learned behaviors. And then it goes, to me, it jumps back into the Little Rod case again, because he says in that Little Rod case as well that like Diddy told them like, these are the things that you have to do to be successful in the music industry. So it makes me question his entry into the music industry as well, because someone
I agree. I've thought of that, like even with the Epstein stuff and like or Harvey Weinstein. Like there is something nefarious going on with the 1%, like the people that are like in charge, and it all feels like it's connected. And there's just some type of initiation process. It seems like the core of it is not even for sexual gratification. It feels like it's a way in which to control people, get what you want, power, and that's how you continue
sex traffic,
to
essentially.
Well, yes, but I'm saying the sex trafficking is a tool, I feel like. Because one is the sex trafficking is making money. There's merely money to them. And then also it's a way in which to like they said, allegedly this Little Rod guy, if it's him, is saying like Diddy would record all of this stuff. And it was not, I don't think just for like to look back for sexual gratification. I think it might have been a part of it. But I think also it was a way in which to be like, gotcha, like you have to do what I say now. I can take advantage of you, which gives him more money. I can give you terrible contracts. I can do this and that because I have you. I have you here, and I will show this to whomever this will, get you to do whatever I want, essentially.
I think I agree with you with the Harvey Weinstein thing. It's about a lot of power. I think with the Diddy and the Epstein thing, I think for those individuals, it was about power. But I think the whole sex trafficking thing that was happening, I think was a larger system at play. I think they might have, I might be getting a little woo-woo here. But I do feel like how the Jeffrey Epstein case played out and how the Diddy case is playing out, that they were put in these positions of power. But I feel like the sex trafficking part of it all, like on both sides, comes down to money and it's not just their money. It's what I'm getting at. You know what I mean? Like they crave that power. So that's why they love being in that position for that. So for Jeffrey and Diddy, I believe it was about power and money. But the money is a little bit higher because they're inherently getting the power being in the positions that they're in the music industry, and with what Jeffrey was doing with his money and the private planes and being doing all those things, right? Being in the politics, doing all that stuff. I think they could allegedly have been a part of a greater system, but for them, it was about power, money, sex, and control. But for the people who are a part of the bigger system, it's about money for them that they're helping them provide, essentially.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense. That was a ramble. But I do think once you remove people like Diddy and Jeffrey, someone else is going to replace those figures. Well,
the thing is, I don't even think it stops with Diddy and Jeffrey Epstein, because I think that there is always, which is one of the allegedly reasons why people think that Jeffrey Epstein didn't just hang himself in his jail cell and that he was actually offed, because him exposing all the things that he had, the blackmail that he had, there are people that are above him that are like that are way more powerful than him.
More powerful.
And that one attorney, she alludes to the same thing, that she wouldn't be surprised if that happened to Diddy too. Moving on to 1997, which is when Biggie dies. So this is now where like, okay, so we already have the allegations of Diddy with sex trafficking. Now let's add on possible like murder? Yeah, like he hasn't been brought any charges for that, but I wouldn't be surprised if
this isn't his first murder, allegedly.
Let's just stick to what's on the document.
Yeah.
Let's stick with the documentary.
Let's stick with the documentary. Okay.
Let's stick with the documentary. Because we'll be here all day. This is a very complicated case. So
it's very rooted. There's so many branches in this fucking thing.
Like we said at the top, not to diminish anybody else's lived experience with sexual assault or like possible like murder or whatever, but this is case is like a fucking black hole, that just doesn't fucking stop. Honestly, I can understand why the documentary may have had to water this down, because it would be like six hours.
You might have to do another podcast of just like all the extra shit after.
Once a trial starts, shit.
Yeah, 'cause it's just so much.
It's so much. But I mean, there's always been rumors that Biggie was taken out by, well, people like Suge Knight was somebody that, they didn't say this in the documentary, but like Suge Knight was somebody that got a lot of blame for like Tupac and possibly Biggie and all this stuff.
Mhm.
But, and there were rumors that it was Diddy, but I feel like I didn't personally start really believing it until a few years ago when I just started, like, we started hearing what he was and seeing with our own eyes what he really was capable of. And yeah, like, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna say it. I do think that Diddy has something to do with Tupac and Biggie's deaths. That I know that he has never been, that has never, no formal charges have been brought. But I think that he has something to do with Biggie's death. I think he has something to do with Pac's death. And I think he has something to do with a lot of people that started Uptown Records deaths. And that's where we're moving on into, because there's just a lot. Oh, I forgot to talk about Albie Shore in this whole, like, Albie Shore got lost in this whole.
No, I mean, because he still can be lumped in right here.
Albie Shore, essentially, there has been a lot of like really nefarious, suspicious things that have happened with all of the founders of Uptown Records, Andre Harrell, Heavy D, and Albie Shore, who was one of the first people to get signed to Uptown Records. Albie Shore was getting on my fucking nerves on some of this parts because he is a little full of himself. I'm like, Albie, like, babe.
Well, also, like, he told two stories at once where I was like, at one point, you and Diddy weren't cool. And another point, it's like, it's bro code. You can't take your girl from your bro. I'm like, but you just said 5 minutes ago how y'all weren't that close. But
exactly. You're close when he's taking Kim Porter away from you. So, okay. So I kind of skipped over the Kim Porter and Albie Shore of it all. So Kim Porter famously dated Diddy for on and off for like 10, 15 years. Kim has 2 biological children with Diddy. But Kim, her first child is Quincy, who she had a child with, singer, songwriter, executive producer, Albie Shore, who was huge in the 90s. And he self-proclaims that his career funded Uptown Records. That's what he says. I don't know how true that is. But, you know, Andre Harrell is not here.
I can't recite an Albie Shore song, so.
Well, I know he was popular, so I'm not taking that away from him. No, but this is what I said. Like, again, like I said, the only person that I can believe fully in this entire documentary is Tim. Albie Shore is another person where I'm like, Albie Shore conveniently gets to tell his side of the story when it comes to Kim, when it comes to Uptown Records, because all the people he's talking about is dead. So, like,
very true.
He gets the cut. And the thing is, I believe him on a base level, to be honest with you, but I feel like he's like gets an opportunity to like really paint himself in a really great light. And he is absolutely taking creative liberties here with the retelling of all of the things that are happening. And that's just how I feel. He's coloring it up a little bit.
Well, for me, I'm like, if you're coloring it up, it's all going to come out in black and white because he is in an ongoing investigation. And he says that he's been in communication with Kim Porter. So I'm going to need to send you those receipts. I'm going to just need to see.
But the thing is, conveniently, there's no receipts to be had because remember, Albie says in the documentary, again, sorry, we're all over the place. This documentary is fucking all over the place. I am so sorry. I'm trying my best to keep it linear, but it's hard. But Kim, who was Diddy's on again, off again girlfriend / baby mama, who used to date Albie Shore first, who was on Uptown's record label. Like you said, Curtis, Albie Shore was like, I mean, I was around Diddy, but we were not friends. Then Albie and him and Diddy are working on a record. Diddy has a girlfriend at the time, and Albie is dating Kim Porter. Look, even Tim says this. It was love at first sight, at least on Diddy's end. And when he sees, that's a very important piece of
I laughed at that part. I'm like, Tim is clocking tea, okay?
Clocking it. Diddy saw Kim Porter. And I honestly think it was like, yes, I'm sure he like was like, oh, she's beautiful. She is beautiful. But I also feel like, again, this is kind of going back to what you were saying, puffing up his chest. I'll be sure if Albie is, you know, being honest, if he, and I know he was big in the 90s, this would have been his opportunity to put him down a peg and show him I'm in charge. And taking his girlfriend who just had his first child and then ending up taking his child as well and completely erasing him from his child's life is kind of like boss level badass behavior. And it works. He completely ostracized. It's evil, but he ostracizes Albie from his own son. I mean, I also, again, but did you try, Albie? Like, he's trying to act like he was the father of the year and he was being like, his son was being taken from him for his. The thing is, I think Albie, I truly think that there is
seem close
a great.
Now.
No, they don't though, because fucking Quincy would be online being like, I don't know what the fuck he talking about, because Quincy is close to Diddy. And every time Albie wants to say these things that like he thinks that his mom was being beaten by Diddy or that he thinks that Diddy killed his mom, Albie is always on the defense about. He doesn't agree with Albie at all. And he posted that picture a couple of months ago on his Instagram account, I want to say, saying Happy Father's Day, and it was just a picture of his mom because Albie wasn't around. So he has a
feel like they reconnected recently. I'm not sure if and they were still in contact because I remember some posts between the both of them. They were still in contact when the Cassie lawsuit happened. Everything started to unfold. I think it started to get strained again. But I do
because Albie's being very vocal about what his thoughts are. But again, Quincy loves Diddy, at least publicly, and that he's not. All the kids put a statement out. They think that it's hurtful that people keep on trying to say that their mother was murdered. They don't like that narrative. What I'm trying to say is Albie, his retelling of why he maybe wasn't as involved, I feel like he is taking creative liberties. Yeah, I don't think that Albie is a bad person, but I think that he was a juvenile person maybe when he first had Quincy, and I don't know. I feel like there is something
a little bit of a playboy.
Yes. So then this moves on into the second point of, we have the sex trafficking, and now it's like, was there murder involved too? Because in the documentary, we go into murder. We go into like Biggie. And everybody knows that there was like that East Coast, West Coast big feud between Biggie and Tupac. But then Tupac ends up getting murdered. Everybody is blaming Biggie. And then Biggie gets murdered. And then everyone's blaming like Suge Knight. But then there's always been rumors that Diddy was behind it. And it's because the reason allegedly Biggie was leaving Bad Boy, because what was Diddy doing? Being a fucking crook. He owned all of Biggie's publishing rights or his
Biggie was sick of Diddy. Biggie was getting sick of Diddy.
He was getting sick of Diddy. And Gene actually brings this up and says that fucking Diddy was being weird that entire week because Biggie was supposed to be going to London. And Diddy was like,
wasn't supposed to be in the country.
Right. He was like, oh, he's not going to London. He's not going to London. And he kept on trying to get Biggie to go to this vibe party. And Gene was like, I don't think we should go to this vibe party because there's not a lot of security. And then he got some intel that there was going to be some type, because again, this is after Tupac has been murdered and everybody is rumbling that Biggie had something to do with it because of their beef.
This is right in where West Coast wanted revenge on Biggie. The West Coast wanted revenge on Tupac. Sorry. This was in the epitome of that energy. Like it was high like any artist coming from the East Coast or the West Coast would be high tension. Especially if you're affiliated with Bad Boy.
But like, so Gene gives Diddy like the heads up, like, we should not go to this thing. Like one of us, like somebody is going to get fucking not come out of this if we go. That's what we're hearing. And Diddy's like, I don't want to hear that. So it's feeling like a setup. And because after they leave the club, it's interesting. Diddy and Gene are in one car. Biggie is in another car. And then Biggie's car gets targeted, gets shot up, and then he ends up passing away. And I think that even Biggie's mom has I feel like Biggie's mom thinks that Diddy has something to do with it as well. And there's like a lot of, again, that could be its own fucking podcast.
Diddy's mom ain't shit, but yeah.
No, not Diddy's, Biggie's. Biggie's mom, I think Biggie's. No.
I'm like, Diddy's mom ain't shit, I believe. But yeah, no, yes.
You're not
Biggie's
wrong.
Mom.
I don't think Diddy's mom is shit. Sorry, Mrs.
No,
Combs,
she's not. Well, all the pieces do come together for anybody who's a logical thinker. Why would you put yourself or your artist in a position or an environment where violence can happen? There's tension on this West Coast. you've been getting threats ever since Tupac was murdered. They've been getting threats from this. So it's like, like you said earlier, do I believe Diddy directly paid someone and hired someone to kill Biggie? No. Do I believe that Diddy put Biggie in a situation where he knew that something would pop off? That I believe that I 1000% believe.
You like Gene. Gene said the same damn thing. Like, I mean, I think you guys are. I think, okay, I agree with you. I think that's what happened. So essentially, it was inevitable for the outcome of what happened to happen, and he knew that, so he could have his hands clean, and that's why he wasn't in the same car with that man, allegedly. But I do think that Diddy directly paid someone to kill Tupac. I do. That's what I think.
Well, we're not going to say there's evidence of that, but there is. We're not going to say it's 100%, but yeah, it's pretty much, allegedly, it's pretty much been proven that it's allegedly been almost proven that Diddy was the one who paid someone for Tupac's murder.
But the thing is also, it's just like, this is not just coming out of nowhere. Like, I almost feel like there is a history, there is a pattern of this. And he has a pattern of violence, and Cassie is the case that really brought what we know to be the violent side of Diddy up publicly in a big way. And so I don't think it is a leap, skip, and a hop away that this man also has committed murder, because then there's just so many people. They kind of bring up fucking what's her name, Jaguar, right? Who went viral, and everybody
briefly, they were like, we're not going to give her too much, but we going
because they learned their lesson through Pierce Morgan, because when Pierce let her have too much freedom and got his ass sued for it. But
quickly, I do want to say the reason why I do believe Gene's side when it comes to his stance on the Biggie's death is because I've seen about 3 or 4 of Gene's interviews, and that story, he said the same exact thing every single time. And every time I watch a Gene interview, when there's some dirt that he needs to throw on dirt that he knows for a fact, he says it. He's like, I saw him beat Kim Porter. I seen him do him do this to Cassie. I've seen him, like, he will say it if he saw it.
That's actually, thank you for bringing up Kim, because that's another, like, evidence of his pattern of abuse. Kim Porter, who is Diddy's former girlfriend, they were on it, getting off again for like 15 plus years. She's a mother of 2 of his children, and he has allegedly been seen abusing her, beating her up. And according to like some sources, Kim Porter was the one who was trying to help Cassie get out of the situation that she was in, because she was Cassie. And that leads me into, and Kim Porter wasn't available for the documentary because she's not available in this world, which leads me to what Albie Shore, who was through this documentary telling colorful tales of his revision of history.
Not colorful tales.
Colorful tales. Like, I feel like everybody in this documentary has an agenda, including Albie Shore. I believe like 80% of what Albie was saying, but 20% of that was his creative liberties, I feel like. Okay?
His memory. It was his memory.
His memory.
His memory.
No one else's but his. But Albie has been, since the whole Cassie and the raids of Diddy's house and him being put in jail, has been very vocal of his theories and conspiracies that Kim was murdered, and he's kind of pointing the finger toward Diddy. I also agree with that, because Kim's death, she died of pneumonia at 47 years old, which is just weird. A person that was completely had no other health issues up until that time, like, should have,
that is realistically suspicious.
Yeah.
Well, what's also suspicious about that is the fact that the autopsy report allegedly, and I'm pretty sure you can look this up, it was done by a Hollywood celebrity, pretty much autopsy person, the same person who did who's done all these suspicious autopsies for all these suspicious celebrity deaths. He did Michael Jackson, he did Whitney Houston, he did someone else.
Was it Brittany Murphy? Probably.
Yes, he did Brittany Murphy's as well. All these celebrity deaths that have conspiracies surrounding around them, the person who's been conducting the autopsies is the same guy. And he's also the same guy who changed it because the autopsy went from unknown, allegedly, we're going to say allegedly, to dying of pneumonia. And he's the one who corrected that. So
yeah, there's some sus things happening with the autopsy reports in a lot of these cases that got brought up. So going back to where it all started with Diddy's music journey, let's go bring it back to Uptown. So Albie Shore was so we all the pins that we're unpinning right now.
We're about to unpin.
Unpin this bitch. So the five, like, let's call it the forefathers of Uptown would be Albie Shore, Heavy D, what the hell is that guy's name? The main one?
Andre Harrell.
Mm-hmm. And Kim Porter was around the entire time. So this is where Jasmine Wright.
She worked for Uptown too at a point.
Yeah. So this is where Jaguar Wright. Jasmine. You was to let me sit here and say that.
It took me a moment to compute what you said, and I'm like, oh, wait, she's not talking.
You know what it is? I think I was, because I feel like they kind of look similar. I was confusing Jasmine Sullivan. Okay, anyway. I was like, anywho, that was my brain. Anyway, Jaguar Wright, she made it vocally known to the public that all these people were creating tell-all books, and mysteriously, when they were creating these alleged books, they all died of heart attacks and pneumonia. And then Albie Shore, one of the founding fathers of Uptown, right? Mm-hmm. He gets something just happens to him where all of his organs start shutting the fuck down. And
literally
he has to be put out of fucking nowhere, and then gets put into a medically induced coma for like 30 something days. Like, they thought this man was going to fucking die, and he happened to not. So Albie has been very.
Oh, I know that pissed Diddy off.
Oh, that pissed him off because we think it's him. We don't know proof.
Allegedly, that pissed him off.
Allegedly, that pissed him off. And so Albie Shore came out of it, and he's saying that he was fucking targeted, and he calls it an assassination. I don't know if it's an assassination if he's not a president, but he definitely was trying to be. He's like, there was somebody trying to kill him. He kept on calling it an assassination.
I'm like, sir, please.
That's what he's saying. He be really colorful with his retellings of things.
He does. But like with the Jaguar Wright comment, though, the thing is, it's like, I haven't found any, unless someone, please, in the comments, if you guys are in there, let me know if there is evidence of Heavy D's tell-all book. Because
I don't know. This is all coming from Jaguar Wright, and she's not the most credible person. So I feel like she got some things right. So now everything that she says, people are taking as if she had some firsthand knowledge, and that's not correct, guys. A lot of the stuff is her just retelling rumors that have been circulating for many years.
Yes.
So everybody needs to stop
taking away from her. That
no, I'm not. But I'm saying,
he had motive. He did have motive for every single.
He had motives. I think she was right in this particular situation, but like, also, guys, we got to stop acting like everything she's saying is the fucking Bible, okay? Because even the Bible ain't truth.
I need y'all to pay attention when I say this and start listening. Most of what Jaguar Wright is saying online is regurgitated information already that has already been said.
Exactly. It's not that she was not actually there. And I think people think that. She wasn't actually, what, you think she was sitting in the fucking corner? Like, she wasn't at all of these things, guys. No. But so that's why I think that there is some nefarious, murderous things happening. And I wouldn't be surprised if he gets brought up on charges at some point for that, or there is some real investigating into his connection with Tupac, with Biggie, and with some of these other people. I don't know if they'll reopen because again, all the autopsy reports say, heart attacks or pneumonia, but like, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens with that.
Let me take one last pin out. Just one last pin. One last pin. The Andre Harrell death. I want to talk about the motive of that because I want to tie everything back to Andre Harrell and his mom and Diddy's mom and how he has kind of come to be how he is now because of we talked about his history with his mother and the original freak-offs of being with his mom and him being an unconsenting child witnessing all that. And then to hear that in these lawsuits and how he treated Cassie and all these other artists have come. There's been timeless lawsuits where all these artists have come out and said, Diddy made me do this in order to have this. Diddy said, I think Andre and his mom and Clive Davis are the people who taught Diddy his habits that he has now, because where else do you pick up the ideas of this is how far you have to get into the music industry? How did he become an intern to an AR to having his own funded Bad Boys record label? Like, that is unheard of. And they even said in the documentary, that is unheard of for a young Black person to have all these things accumulated like this. Like, I
think there's something to that.
The big wigs, they're not just giving positions to people like this.
And the thing is, I completely agree that I think that you're onto something there, because again, that is how Diddy has gotten anything that he wanted in life, almost through blackmail, it seems like, allegedly. And that's why he
learned
takes
behavior.
That is learned behavior. So he probably got it. Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. I think that you're absolutely onto something there, and they need to be looked into.
They do. And so that's why the motive for Andre Harrell would be payback. And my little theory would be, you forced me to do these things that had to get in this position. I'm upset and traumatized from that. So now you're dead. So
payback.
That's just my little pen. Well, big pen. Final pen.
So, I honestly think that there is a lot of validity in what you're saying. And again, let's look into that. Someone look into that can do something.
Please.
But to wrap it all up, honestly, the documentary, it covers just a lot of possibly how Diddy became who he is, to the current state of homes getting raided in Florida, the Cassie lawsuit, and then
his operations of staff, his network of luring people in to gang rape people.
Right.
Ashley.
So I think that this whole document. Yes. So I think this, like, we didn't even get really covered into the details of like some of like the allegations with the Ashley girl or some of these other. There's just so many allegations that it's so hard to cover. But essentially, I feel like this documentary, and maybe I'll take back that it was soft, but I think it was the blueprint of, or maybe this is like the prequel. The documentary is like the prequel. Like, you needed the prequel of like the origin story. Because there's so much to come. Like, I didn't realize how much ground we would have to cover. Like, this honestly, this podcast could be like 4 hours long. And we didn't even
skim, when I tell you, Pia, my notes, because I have a pen for every
No, my notes are like 10 pages, and we're like already like going into 2 hours. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, like, there's just so much to this. Like, I'm so overwhelmed with how much information is actually really into this. Like, but essentially, like, where there's smoke, there's fire. There's a reason why there's a saying. And there's so many people in this documentary that are pretty much giving testimony to who Diddy is characterized. And I will end it with, Tim is the only reliable fucking source in this entire documentary, because the way Tim is, a man is trying to grapple with the person he once knew and coming to terms with the person that Diddy now is, was heartbreaking, but so fucking real. It was so fucking real. All his other friends that are in this documentary need to be looked into. I don't know why they lying for that man.
Lying.
Gene, thank you for speaking up. We needed you, man.
We needed the OG. Like, that's honestly, let's take a moment to shout out Gene really quick, because he, like we said, he's an OG from the streets. They don't do this. They're not supposed to be on camera talking about their experience.
And the thing is,
that's
I don't
huge.
consider
That's huge.
No, it is huge. And I think that and I know we talked about snitches and rats and all this stuff. And we have established Melvin and Sean Combs, P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, Brother Love is a goddamn snitch. They both are. And
yes, very much
I don't consider Gene a snitch, because I think the reason in which Gene, and this is the reason why it's different, is because I think that Gene is not snitching. He's disgusted that Diddy is that much of a punk bitch. Because there's a reason why, like, when people go to jail for molestation, especially of minors,
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why prisoners beat them the fuck up, because people don't like, and that actually, you know what, that debunks my theory. People don't like even the most horrible, murderous person. One thing that the rule of law of prison, like I've been there, is that people don't fuck with child molesters.
They don't.
And I do think that Gene believes that's what Diddy is. And that gave him a loophole of being able to say it, because it's not just him murdering people. It's not just him ripping people off. You are a child molester, allegedly.
No, there's a code. And I know for New York, there's a real code. New York, especially New Yorkers, and you lived in New York for a time too. There's a code. Yeah. You don't fuck with women, you don't fuck with the elderly, and you don't fuck with kids. Yeah. And Diddy's been doing all three.
All fucking three.
All three.
Oh so my God.
I agree with you too that I don't consider what Gene's doing as snitching. I think he sees as Diddy as violating the code of ethics, the code of honor, the street code. And
that gives him the right to expose him then.
Yeah.
It gives him the right to it does. It gives him the right to expose him. And so that's not snitching. It's completely different. And we stand behind you, Gene.
It's holding your fellow gangsters to a standard. There's standards and gangsters.
There's standards or rules to this. We have no affiliation with any gangs, and we've never been to prison. Curtis may have been to jail. I think Curtis has been to jail, though. I don't know.
I've been threatened by the judge. The judge has said, if I see you again, you're in jail. Guess what?
You're in jail, locked up. You didn't go. Well, thank you so much. If you haven't already, you should check out the documentary. Again, it's funny because I started out like they didn't cover enough stuff because, I will say this real quick. I was just mad they didn't cover. There are some people that they didn't cover, and I do want to shout this out. The documentary did not touch on R. Kelly, nor did they touch on his whole relationship with J-Lo and the club shooting with Shine. They did not talk about Lori Ann Gibson, which was Diddy's choreographer for all of his bands that he created, like Da Band and Danity Kane. Yeah. They didn't talk about. Yes, we didn't cover this, but Dawn Richards from Danity Kane, and then his second group, which was Diddy Dirty Money, she has a lawsuit against him. They did cover that, but they didn't talk about Aubrey O'Day, who from day one was calling Diddy out, who was in Danity Kane. They didn't talk about Faith Evans, really. They didn't talk about Jay-Z. I get that one, litigious. Jay-Z is a litigious one. And they didn't really talk about 50 Cent. They didn't really talk about, they kind of talked about Mace, but not really.
I wish this a little
They
bit
didn't talk about Usher. They didn't talk about Bieber. I think that will get covered in better documentaries, but those are, by the way, also Bieber has unfollowed Usher on Instagram, and I don't know the timing of that.
I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. He is not following. That just recently came out like a few days ago. So,
side note. Well, let's tie that in with the Super Bowl. Usher asked him to come do a Super Bowl appearance, and he didn't.
And he said no.
This is all through the Diddy thing. And there's a video circulating of Justin Bieber when he was like 13 years old or something like that, where he's being interviewed, and then they bring up Usher, and then now we're looking at that like, why are the feds bringing up Usher? Because they were already investigating Diddy.
Yeah. Oh my God. There's going to be so much more that gets revealed once the court case, which I believe the court case begins on Cinco de Mayo, which is a hell of a day to start a court case. There's going to be a bunch of drunk American people off of tequila watching this.
Wait, is it going to be televised?
Because
didn't he requested not to be televised or something?
He's requested a lot of things that the judge said no to, so.
Absolutely. That part. All I know is I'm going to be defeated. 3 times, 4 times, 5 times.
5 times. He is trying to get up out of there.
He said, Judge, I'll give you my private plane, my passports, my kids, my unborn kids, my home. I'll give you
my home, my mama's home. I'm gonna surrender the little girl that's like 6 months old's passport, babe. Like, I'm
Can you imagine the withdrawals he's experiencing in there?
I'm sure he's probably sweating like a motherfucker.
Oh my God.
Sarah from Da Band, who also accused him of sexual assault, who was in the documentary, said something really petty and funny to me at the very end. She's like, I hope, is somebody bringing you cheesecake in jail? And I said, Sarah.
Also, speaking of that moment when we thought that was entertainment, and then we don't know the map of the geography because we were living in Michigan at that time. We did not know the geography of Manhattan or Brooklyn.
Well, I did know. I'm not gonna lie, because I used to go to New York all the time. I did know because I knew where they were going because I have family in Brooklyn, and whenever we would go to New York, they would be like, "Oh, we need to go to Junior's," which is where the cheesecake place that he wanted them to go to was in Brooklyn, Junior's in Brooklyn. And I've been there, I've eaten there, and everybody loves this place. And so I knew where the fuck he made them walk, and I knew what they were getting. It's a notoriously famous place for New Yorkers to get cheesecake and food. So I did know, but
hours.
Because Diddy had them walk from Manhattan to Brooklyn. But the thing is, I still thought it was entertainment because back then when you were mean to people, that was entertainment and we accepted it.
And we also thought, like, this is what the music industry, like, literally, they were grooming us all. They were grooming us all.
We just thought that that's what it took because that's what the media has taught us that it took to be successful. And now we're realizing that is very toxic and what the fuck we're rethinking.
And also very untrue. The rich people actually cut corners and do take the most easiest route that they can.
Exactly. We've been being manipulated and lied to for years, for centuries. But thank you so much, Curtis. You honestly, like, I really wish I have to go to work soon. I could have talked to you for like another hour. I was like, shit. Like we had went on so many tangents in the best way possible. There's just so much to this case, and I think I underestimated how much there really was and how
big this onion was.
That the problem is that's kind of how the documentary was formatted, but it's so, and also it is so much stuff that is in there that it's really hard to keep it because it's honestly, it's fucking crazy. Like all of the, it's everywhere.
We really did not get into the Kim Porter of it all. We did not get into Sean Richards, Cassie.
And the thing is, all of those separate cases could be their own podcast. That's how complicated this shit is. But I do want to thank you so much for giving me your time and your knowledge and your insight. You had so much stuff that you brought that this documentary
I hope this comes out okay.
But honestly, I do highly recommend watching the documentary. It's streaming on Peacock. And I can't wait till more of the documentaries come out in this actual court case. I also want to remind you guys, if you want to know more insight and things on subjects like this, Curtis is your guy. Please follow him on all the platforms. You can find Curtis. Go ahead and plug your socials for me.
I guess right now it'll be Instagram. By the time this airs, TikTok's going to be gone. So you can follow me on Instagram, Curtis with 2 S's, Reed, REED. And then I am on Lemonade, which is Reality Curdy. So reality CURTIE, Curdy. Like cutie, but Curdy.
Amazing. And I'll also have all of his socials listed in the description box below. So you'll be able to find it there as well. And just look forward and keep your ears and eyes open for him. He will, whenever app becomes popular, I'm sure he'll be on it. So you'll find him there as well. So thank you so much, Curtis. I'm sorry this was so chaotic.
No, this is literally like our FaceTimes. That's why I was like, ooh,
I know.
I need to remember we're on the podcast. We're not on FaceTime.
Right. But I have to do the same thing with myself. There's so much.
We literally can sit on a phone and talk about a certain subject all day if we had the time to. Like,
we really could.
Problem, but this one was really fun for me because I've been following Diddy, this whole Diddy situation since, well, not even following Diddy. We're 90s babies. Like, we've been fans of his music. And like you said earlier, I'm used to be a huge hip hop and music head. So like all these stories, especially like the Little Rod case and how Young Miami from City Girls, it's like what's in this case. And she's accused of being a sex worker, a part of Diddy's payroll. And I love Young Miami and the City Girls. Like, you know, it's just like, I shouldn't say it's been fun to keep up with this, but it's been interesting.
It can get dark though too. So it's like to protect your mental health as well. Cause I found myself feeling almost depressed after I feel like 2 straight weeks of just looking at all the information on the case. And I was like, oh, I need to like start. That's when I was like, I need to start looking at content that's lighter because it is taxing.
Gets heartbreaking. And then once you get to the heartbreaking part, you start entering the conspiracy of it all. And then you're just like, oh, this is just like that.
Then you're Jaguar Right. Yeah,
we got Jaguar Right. We got I
started feeling like Jaguar Right for like, I was like, I can see how she got here. I can see, because that's how I started feeling when I started.
I can see how this happened.
And thank you so much, Curtis. We really appreciate you. Like, see, Curtis, like, honestly could go on. I told you he could go. He has all the insider stuff. We'll have to have him back on. So, because this might have to be like a fucking series.
But thank you, Pia. Thank you for having me, Pia. This was a blast.
Thank you, Curtis. I knew this was going to be a beautiful mess. Oh my God, what a non-linear, chaotic journey that recap was, but I also loved it. So thank you so much again to Curtis for helping me break down that documentary. The documentary could have been formatted a little bit differently. That is my biggest criticism of it. But I'm actually looking so forward to all of the other documentaries to come. I know 50 Cent sold his documentary, Diddy Do It, to Netflix. And I'm sure Max, HBO, whatever we want to call it nowadays, is in the works of making their own, like, the Jinx, but like Diddified, Diddler. I don't freaking know. But I will be here for any new content that drops, especially when the trials start. So put a pin in it. I know we said that a lot. That was like a running theme. Put a pin in it, but really put a pin in it because there's still so much to uncover. I think I might do a podcast episode about just the the conspiracies of this whole case. I have so many, and I kind of wanted to get into that. And don't forget to follow Curtis on all of his socials, especially TikTok, because TikTok went dark for like 18 hours, and now we're back. Curtis and I kind of talked about this in the episode, but we're back now, baby, better than ever. So follow Curtis. His Instagram and TikTok and all of his socials are the same. It is reality.curdy. And I'll have that listed in the show notes below, as well as my socials, which you can follow me on TikTok and Instagram. Meta. I mean, I have to be there, whatever. I'm trying to be where all the people are. And that is PiaJV. And if you want to email the pod, you can email the pod at piapopcultureguru@gmail.com. If you have any more fun things that you can add for any of the episodes that I've released, I want to hear from you. Or if you have suggestions for any future episodes. Really, we would need to unpack, like, every portion of the Diddy case could be its own podcast episode, like hours long podcast episodes. But I still think we did a really, really good job of getting through that documentary. And I had a blast with Curtis. He came so prepared with stuff that was not even included in the documentary that should have been included in the documentary. So Peacock, do better. But it was still a good documentary. But next week, we are going to be popping off with another documentary. I'm in like a little true crime mode right now. And I'm going to be popping off about the third installment of The Curious Case of Natalia Grace. And I'm going to be popping off with one of my friends, Eric Delgado. And he's my coworker, but he's also one of my really good friends. And let me tell you, during our breaks, when the first part of that documentary came out and the second part, that's all we could talk about. So I was like, Eric, when we were on break, I was like, do you want to recap this with me on Pia Pop Business? And he said, absolutely. So that will be next week's episode. So thank you so much for listening. Again, if you're not already, please subscribe, hit that like and notification bell if you're on YouTube. And if you're listening to the audio version, 5 stars will help me out in a positive review. But until next time, what does Pia always say? Oh yeah, pop off!